Today on Homeworthy, 4 extraordinary florists, 4 stunning homes. Let's step inside. In New Jersey, Vida Cornelious reveals her 1905 French Colonial, bold, colorful, and kissed with Parisian flair.
It's easy to make a really beautiful arrangement by just sticking to the same colors, different flowers in the same colors. Really makes a nice arrangement, especially if you're a beginner. Another thing that helps the lifespan of your flowers is to put a little bit of bleach, like a cap full of bleach, and a little sip of Sprite in your water. And that'll make your flowers stay fresh for a really long time.
Then we head to Australia, where Petrina Burrill's garden bursts with tulips, ranunculus, and wisteria, all in full bloom.
Here we have a flowering cherry. She's almost finished now, but I look out from my bedroom window and I just see these white fluffy clouds, which I absolutely love.
Then in New York, Molly Ford opens her pre-war townhouse layered with antiques and artful dried florals.
One of the most important things or special things to me is the ceiling. There are moments that even have like little flowers on the ceiling, and for me as a florist, obviously I love that stuff. And it just feels really romantic and special.
Next, we go across the pond to London, where Larry Walshe invites us into his serene, neutral retreat, a quiet counterpoint to his vibrant creations.
I love flowers which are interesting, which are unique, which are hard to find. So there'll always be like little things like terrariums or this little planted moment going on over here. And I'll just change it as we go throughout the season so that way it constantly feels refreshed, but at the same time, it feels super elevated and super effortless.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Vida Cornelious. I am an advertising executive, creative person, and we're in my home right now in South Orange, New Jersey. I would describe the style of this home as French Colonial. I moved here in 2021, and one of the first things that I wanted to do was go to the town record and find out more about the lot. I did find out this house was built in about 1905, and this neighborhood was actually kind of one of the summer home neighborhoods of some of the barons of New York, I guess, at the time. So I don't know if it's a true French Colonial, maybe it's an interpretation of a French Colonial, but I do love the way this house is built. I wanted a house that had French windows, believe it or not. I wanted a house with stucco, not siding. And it really did check all the boxes, so that was something that I felt very fortunate to find a home that kind of fit that bill. And I just love the overall openness of the home. It has a living room, a formal dining room, kitchen. It doesn't have a bathroom on the first floor, so that's the only drawback. But it's a perfect size, I think, for an individual to have enough room to spread out, but still, it feels cozy. So I really do love the layout of this home. I really want to encourage people who are home hunting that, when it's your house, you kind of know. And I felt like when I walked in here, it was my house. I just kind of could see the vision of what I wanted it to be. So it's been a really amazing journey to be able to transform the house. So welcome to my living room. This is where I spend the majority of my time, I would say, when I get home from work, which is great. It's very relaxing in here. One of the first things I did when I moved into the home, while the home was still empty, I really wanted to get a color palette going in terms of the colors I wanted to paint in the house. And I saw a picture on Pinterest where there was this stark black living room with very crisp white trim, and I just fell in love with it, as part of that Parisian kind of style and decor. So that's why I went with the black paint in here. This is Sherwin-Williams, called Caviar. I really love it. It's like a dark black that has like a little slightly blue undertone, it seems at times. One of the things that was a big focal point in this room, when I moved in, the fireplace was your traditional red brick. But I wanted to make it a focal point in the room, so Painting it white was the big decision. And this is indeed a working fireplace. It's a wood burning fireplace, but I personally happen to be a little afraid to light it. So I haven't used it yet, but at one Christmas, I think I will get around to that. So with the mantle and with the fireplace, I mean, really created a great opportunity for me to take advantage of hanging this piece of artwork that I have here. And a great story on this piece of artwork is when I was in my 20s and gotten my first condo when I lived in Chicago, in advertising, I had a lot of vendors that I worked with, print vendors, people who would do print production for me. And a friend of mine gave me a great book on Madagascar for my birthday, which I loved. And so my vendor said, hey, let me see that book. And he took the book from me. I had some pages that were, you know, dog-eared and marked as ones that I really just loved looking at. And he took one of the images that I had marked and blew it up into this great, you know, full-size photo piece of artwork, you know, really great, you know, kind of DPI and resolution on it, professional grade. And he put it in the frame and everything and gave it to me as a gift for my first condo. So it's been with me ever since. I love it. People come in the house and they say, is that Damon Wayans? And I'm like, no, he's actually a witch doctor in training, a Madagascaran witch doctor in training. I believe he's like 17 years old in this photo. So if I'm doing my math right, he should be about 57 years old right now, 58 if I were to actually meet him in person. This bulldog, which I purchased way back when somewhere in some little store in Brooklyn, this was way before I had my actual French bulldog puppy, and I just knew I wanted a dog, but at the time I lived in an apartment building where I couldn't have pets. So I said, I'm gonna buy myself a little bulldog, and that way he'll be the placeholder for when I get my real dog. So this little guy's been with me for many, many years. The coffee table is another kind of antique piece that I found at a vintage shop. I'm not really sure, you know, what year it's from or anything like that, but I did love how feminine it is. It has a nice round shape with the scallop, so I really like that. A lot of things you'll see in the house. I have a lot of marble kind of accents. I feel like that kind of pulls in some of that Parisian vibe I was going for because I really like the idea of using marble as kind of an accent. I have a nice mixture, I think, of things that kind of keep me creatively stimulated, if you will. You know, little artifacts like these, like the hand, you know, it just kind of gives a sense of texture. I like wood elements, you know, things like that to be in the house as a way of kind of making things earthy and feel pretty good. The sofa I got a couple years ago. I really like it. It's a very small sectional from Interior Define. And at the time, my dad was living with me, so I needed something that was, you know, comfy enough for him to sit up here and watch television, not too hard for him to stand up if he needed to get out of it, so it couldn't be too deep and too low to the floor. So this kind of fit the bill very well. Another thing I wanted to point out in here is this piece of art here is also from the book Madagascar. So that's a different gentleman who's like a tribesman. But I just love the look of him because, you know, it just kind of shows that Black people come from so many different cultures. You can see by the look in his eyes, he has like Asian and Indian and African all mixed up in his DNA. And it's just absolutely stunning, beautiful. These are just like 2 wall units actually that I got at IKEA many years ago. And I will give like a lot of props to IKEA because, you know, usually their stuff doesn't last that long, I hate to say, but these have been with me for well over 4 or 5 apartments and have made the move very well. I love how it just kind of organizes everything, my stereo system. Yes, I'm a girl that still listens to CDs from time to time, so I have lots of CDs. My books, you know, pictures of my parents when they were younger, family pictures. So it's just kind of like a great, you know, organizing credenza, you know, for this room. I have lots of little Frenchies because, you know, I love my Frenchies. So I have plenty of little ceramic Frenchies all over the house. And then there's a great story, like you'll see some more of this sort of Black Baroque artwork in the house. And these are things that I honestly found on Etsy and then just had them pulled on a frame. And I just like that idea of kind of adding a little bit of what feels like a historical look at like Blackness from other cultures and from other time periods. So I have a few of these Black Baroque sort of images in the house. This New York Times piece is really fun because anybody can get this. If you go to the New York Times store, you can order your birthday front page. So this is my birthday front page. So it gave me an idea of what was going on in December of 1970. And I said, hey, I must have been pretty special because 3 chicks decided to rob a bank on my birthday. So maybe that means I'll be eternally a bad girl, you know. But as they say, you know, women who do dangerous things are interesting and they make the world go round. So who knows? So here is my plant fam. I'm really proud of my plants. I haven't had much of a green thumb in terms of growing plants, but I feel like I've finally found my groove with this little grouping I have here. So a lot of these have been with me for quite a while. They've made a couple moves and they're doing really well. That's where the French windows come in. I'm really happy that I have the ability to open these doors and give them plenty of sunlight. I do want to give a shout out to Z. I call her Z. She's a Z plant because when I got her, she was about that big from IKEA on the clearance rack. So she was kind of like a, you know, a lost cause little baby girl. She was probably about $2 or $3 at the time. And look at her, she's like blowing up. So I've had this plant, oh my gosh, I think maybe 8 years. I have no, you know, it's been a really long time. She's moved 2 apartments with me. So I'll talk about this piece of art. I love it. It has a great story. I have a really talented friend who owns her own production company called Wild Child Editorial. Shout out to Yvette Pinero. And so, you know, in her office, she had a small version of this poster and I always loved it. I just loved the graphic nature of it. And her reason for having it is because enfant sauvage means wild child in French, but her grandfather was also the editor on the film. So I always loved this poster and I said to her, oh my God, if you ever can get another, you know, copy of that poster, I would love it. I would hang one in my house as well. And she had a version that was probably, I don't know, 18 by 24, you know, kind of small. When I moved to LA, she was like, hey, I'm going to send you that poster. I found one. And I get it in the mail and I'm like unfolding it and unfolding it and unfolding it. And I didn't realize she sent me the actual poster that was like from the theater. So it's pretty amazing. It was huge and made quite a statement. So I had it framed and it was funny because when I took it to the frame shop and got it framed, they had it sitting in the window for, you know, maybe a week or 2 until I was able to get someone to pick it up and deliver it to my home. And several people tried to make offers to me on this piece once it was framed. And I was like, forget about it. So I love it. And I'm glad I was able to be gifted that by my friend. So it was great. This is a little bit of my bar. You know, I like to entertain quite a bit. So at the holidays, people are always kind enough to bring me bottles of spirits, wine, so on and so forth. I'm definitely a spirit drinker. I love, you know, brown spirits. When my dad was here, he definitely took full advantage of that. Even though he was 87, he'd take like 3 sips and he'd be asleep for the rest of the night. But he liked to feel like he could come over here and make himself a cocktail. So, you know, we used to have a little fun doing that, he and I. So this is my entryway. Really love it. When I moved into the house, I knew I wanted it to have a warm, kind of welcoming feeling as soon as you walk in the door. So I made sure to put this big rug down. This was something that kind of just ties the 2 rooms together, honestly, because once we go in the dining room, you'll see like little touches of blue. There's a lot of the burnt orange that's in the rug that ties to the living room. So I really like how this rug kind of becomes a transitional point, if you will. But the main thing in this area that I'm really proud of is that I personally hung this gallery of all of my family's photos. I'm kind of like the de facto, I guess, you know, historian in my family in a way. I've managed to kind of collect quite a few of my parents' black and white photos, their wedding, my grandparents, moments of them in their childhood. So I'm really proud of a lot of the family photos that I have here on both sides. So if you've been following things like the Met Gala, for example, this is my granddad. And, you know, he looks like a real dandy right here. He has that like dandyism kind of vibe going on. I love it. You know, very great look. My mom went to the same college that I went to. That was kind of our family tradition, going to Hampton University, which is a historically black college. And these are just some pictures from campus, my mom's time on campus when she was there. So it's so amazing to kind of have a little history of even our alma mater as a part of my family photos. You know, her debutante ball, my debutante ball, you know, so these are really great, like, I think moments in my family's history. This is my dad with his parents. And, you know, the other thing that I think sometimes we take for granted is that, you know, the age that we're in now, we take so many photos with our phones and everything like that. We can take pictures of pretty much everything. Our parents just didn't have that, you know, so having family photos where they're like really pivotal moments of your parents, like from their childhood and things like that is really, it's like, so I find it really, I don't know, it's just wonderful to be able to see that. But these doors have a great story because they weren't actually doors. The original homeowners had like kind of like the level doors here, you know, they're just kind of basic leading into the kitchen. But I knew I wanted something to kind of be able to see through and give it some, you know, kind of depth to the hallway here. So I managed to find, since this is a really narrow space, it was hard to find doors that were narrow enough for this space. But honestly, I went to a salvage yard for like architectural, you know, artifacts type thing. And I found these windows. So these were actually windows, and the owner added this bottom half to make it the full length of a door. So it was pretty great. So when he told me about these windows, he said, oh, you know, it's funny that you picked those out because I just got those in from a house in France. And I was like, what? You know, I'm like doing my whole house with this Parisian inspiration. So this is so awesome. So it kind of had a, you know, kind of gave it that flair. I really appreciated that. So yeah, so once he did the whole build out to make it full length to a door, my contractor, once again, shout out to Tico's Carpentry, specifically Juan, had this great idea to stain the door. And then we did this kind of like chalk paint. And, you know, the two of us kind of sat in the basement and like, is that chalky enough? No, a little bit more chalky, you know. So we had a good time just kind of like making this distressed looking. So we really loved how it came out. These little push pads I got from eBay. I'll talk about eBay quite a bit. I love eBay. If there's anything you've ever broken, you think you'll never find again, it is so true. You will find it on eBay. I'm a Pinterest girl. So I don't do anything without creating a Pinterest board. I have a Pinterest board for everything. So I definitely created a Pinterest board to get me started on the design of this home. But knowing that I had done that little bit of history and they said that the home was kind of French Colonial, I said, you know what, I really want to lean into some of that French flair in terms of what I think this home could carry in terms of the design sense of that. I also am kind of like a closet Francophile. I love France, I love Paris. I'll show you guys a little later, I guess, some of the things about me going to floral school, and I went to floral school in Paris. So really, really, you know, something that is close and near and dear to my heart. So I kind of used some of that inspiration of how I wanted to rehab the house, you know, and touches that I wanted to put into it that really gave it some of that French flair. The big moves were the kitchen. You know, I made a full gut rehab of the kitchen. I added a bathroom, my primary bedroom. And I redid the hall bath. So I did quite a bit of updating here, and I definitely want to give a huge shout out to my contractor, Tico's Carpentry of Union, New Jersey. They were amazing partners to help me rebuild this entire house. Honestly, there's a lot of things in here that I've had since I was like in my 20s and had my very first condo that I bought. So yeah, so I feel like it's kind of like a growing collection of things that represent myself. So this is my dining room. I definitely like to have dinners in here. During the holidays, this is where I set up all of my food and everything on the table here. I usually have a massive floral arrangement for the holidays. So I created this one for Homeworthy, but unfortunately I had to do it a few days ago. So it's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit soft right now, but I love the colors of it. It's peony season, so I always try and include some peonies in my arrangements around this time. But, you know, I love this table. I'll talk about it in a second. Some of the artwork that's in here, I got this Basquiat print, you know, at the MoMA store. My company fortunately has a great discount there. So we're able to get some really nice limited edition things. So this was a limited edition Basquiat piece that I felt like, oh, it's really nice. And it adds a nice, you know, texture to this room. Maybe one day I'll be able to get a real one, but I doubt it. But some of the things, you know, again, more just kind of marble accents, more of family photos, pictures of relatives. I really love these lamps. I got these lamps a really, really long time ago. I want to say these are like, I don't know, probably probably 20 years old at this point. I think these were like in my very first condo, and I really have always loved them. I just love the shape of them, and even though I don't have a ton of silver in the house, I just still feel like they work very well with my decor, and I just love the feminine lines of them. I love this sort of, you know, I don't like engraved. I mean, this is kind of like has a little Indian Bali-esque kind of vibes. So I love this credenza. I got this at Wayfair, I believe, and it just really worked really well in one of my previous apartments. I used to just store like books and things in it, but now it's become sort of like my de facto, you know, sort of like entertaining cabinet. I keep all of my tablecloths and accoutrements for any type of entertaining. All of my friends like to joke with me that I'm the Black Martha Stewart. So about the table and chairs, the table came from CB2, really love it. It has this like really interesting bottom, brass bottom there, which was very pretty. I saw it online and was just like, oh my God, I have to have it. And it was a nice table that seats 6. You know, my previous table seated 8 people, so it's a little smaller than the table that I had before. So hence the reason I have 2 chairs that are kind of outliers here. But you know, 6 is really nice, and the round table really is great for conversation. I love the white top. Like I said, I really love like the white trim all through the house. So you know, the white accents is something that I really love. You know, this little stand here I got in LA many years ago at a shop that was kind of like a, I don't know, I think it was like Bali kind of esque, you know, home decor store or something going out of business, and I've always really loved it. So I always use it as like a plant stand, and I always make it a focal point, but it's been a really great piece to have. I just love the carvings, and it kind of has a really nice vibe to it. This piece of artwork right here is interesting. I'll back up to this. This piece of artwork is interesting because in my travels and world as being an art director and a creative person in my ad career, you know, lots of times you shoot a commercial, you're creating an environment for the character, an apartment, a bedroom, whatever it is, a set design. And there was an art director, the set designer, the prop designer at the time. We just needed a piece of artwork to like fill a space, you know, on the set. So we went out to the parking lot, he and I together, and just like painted this piece like on the spot. So it was pretty awesome, you know, and it was just one of those things you just do, you know, because it just needed to be done at the time. And he surprised me by shipping it to me, you know, to the agency and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And I've always kept it, and it just, yeah, once again, the colors worked, and here it is. It lives in my house. So that again is something that's probably like 20 years old. This artwork I love. The piece is called Toto. It's by an artist named Erin Robinson, and you'll see more of her work upstairs in my bedroom when we go up there. But Erin is a really great artist. She actually did one of our US stamps recently, so I'm so glad I was able to get a piece of hers before she, you know, officially has become a household name of sorts. This piece, Toto, was actually a smaller piece, and I asked her to see if she could blow it up into a large statement piece, and she was able to work with her vendors, I believe in North Carolina, to make this a large scale piece. So I really love it. It's part of her Brooklyn Dolly line of art, and I think that's like kind of what she calls her pieces that are in this kind of vein. So I love the colors of it, the graphic nature of it. It's always a big statement. Whenever people come over, they want to like take a selfie in front of it, things like that. So I love that. I think what informs my sense of style is I would say I'm a little bohemian, kind of global chic, I guess, you know. I don't know. I think I kind of am drawn to things that have great texture. I like natural materials like wood. I definitely am more into clean lines. I'm not into anything too fussy. I don't like a lot of clutter or kind of tchotchkes. So I don't have a lot of things that are just sort of all over everything. So I think my aesthetic is kind of artsy and a little bit bohemian, but it's kind of found objects in a way too that I think mix together very well. I like neutral colors, but I like pops of color in places to give it, you know, give it a little bit of depth. Like even with this room, if you look up, I made the ceiling the French silver color. I just like to kind of see things layer on themselves, I guess, is the way I look at my style choices. So I probably mentioned that I am a lover of flowers, and I went to floral school in Paris. And I went to Catherine Mueller School, which are my diplomas here. So my first iteration of going to floral school in Paris, I studied the Marie Antoinette course that was taught by Catherine. This is my diploma, super proud of that. And that time that I spent in Paris is how I learned more of the technique of like the wild kind of flower, loose flower arranging. Just really, really loved everything I learned there in that whole experience. And then I treated myself to a second course there, but this time I went to their London outpost. So in that course, I learned all about weddings and different types of wedding builds, whether they were big arches or doorways or bouquets. So both of my classes instruction I received at Catherine Mueller, I'm really, really proud of. So my diplomas are something that helped me feel legit. So this is my kitchen, and I will honestly say I had big dreams, big visions for this kitchen. They had the stove, the refrigerator, dishwasher, and the cabinetry pretty much stopped here. They didn't have a lot of counter space at all. This whole back half of the kitchen, they had like a high boy table, which was kind of like, I guess, where they ate their meals. So the kitchen was really, it was pretty spare. There were no upper cabinets really at all. So I felt like I had a pretty blank slate in order to work with in here. So once again, I had the Pinterest board because I always have the Pinterest board. I definitely had one image that was an inspiration photo of someone who had built their kitchen with like this little nook that had a bistro table and a little settee. Somewhere they had like coffee and they had like a little muffin on it. And I was like, oh my God, I want that. I want to have like this little Parisian, like I'm sitting in a cafe looking out at the street kind of idea. So the kitchen definitely started with this notion of Parisian bistro. And that's kind of like what I started with as a design inspiration. Probably the very first thing I picked out was the tile. And the tile was the inspiration for many other elements in the kitchen because it's marble with a little touches of gold in it. It has shades of gray, shades of like kind of this mushroom kind of tan. So it really was a versatile pattern, even though it's very subtle. So using that as inspiration, the next thing was the flooring, because I knew I wanted flooring that was going to be durable and easy to clean. Maybe not something too precious that if, things got spilled on it, I was always having to mop it and clean it up. But this like wood plank look that's actually, tile, I really loved it. And I also love laying it in the same kind of, format as what the wall tile is. So it kind of ties the room together, the wall and the floor. So one of the things I really did love, and I kind of stole it from my apartment in LA, was my apartment there had these open cabinets with the glass fronts. And I know for some people that's kind of intimidating because you find that you have to keep your cabinets organized all the time. But that wasn't really that big of a problem for me because I kind of have always had white dishes and I really loved having white dishes. So it really looks cohesive. One of the things I went ahead and splurged on was this faucet from Duval Kitchens. I can't afford a Duval kitchen, but I definitely fell in love with their TV show, For the Love of Kitchens, if you ever have seen that. And it's like such a beautiful, well-made faucet. It's brass and like it patinas like as you touch it, so it just has a really beautiful luster to it. But I like the old-timey handles, and it goes well with this like farmer's sink, which I definitely loved. From Kohler. So these were kind of the must-haves in the kitchen, to be honest, with the rehab. So part of doing that was also adding this pot rail from Duval, but I actually use it as a cup kind of holder. This is like my little, coffee vignette, I guess. It's like little stacked with little kind of knickknacks and things that kind of represent, a little bit, like I said before, that Parisian sort of vibe, that Baroque vibe. So I found these black Baroque images on Etsy, put them on canvas again, and added it to this look and feel. You'll see a lot of elephants in my home. It's part of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. So the elephants definitely have a great, symbolism and place in my home as part of that. The settee is another great story. So again, trying to put that vision together on from that I had on Pinterest. I really needed a little bench here that would fit into the kitchen and into this nook. And again, back on eBay, found this, and a lady was selling it, you know, a little old lady in like Princeton, New Jersey. So I took the drive down to see if I could figure out how to use it. It was literally covered in this like kind of weird mint green paint, and it had a strange brocade fabric. So it wasn't really that pretty, but I don't know, I had vision for it, I guess. I could see the lines of it were really pretty and feminine, and I really liked it. I had no idea what the wood was going to be underneath all that paint, but that was the job. So I quickly jumped on YouTube and called myself trying to DIY strip it. You know, people make it look so easy. It was not. So I basically bailed and took it to Dip and Strip in Hackensack. So if you ever need anything stripped and you're in New Jersey, Dip and Strip is your place. Those guys took care of it overnight and, you know, really revealed this beautiful kind of honey wood. And so I love that. So the upholstery was, again, another interesting story. I was, you know, dating someone who lived in Terrytown, and he would take me to vintage shops all the time, and we would go to antique fairs. And I ran across a place that just had fabric, you know, by the bolt. So I bought this upholstery fabric, not really knowing what I'd do with it at the time, but it was so cheap. I just figured I was doing all these projects around my house, I'd eventually find something I wanted to reupholster. So I bought the bolt, and maybe it was my art training, but it just happened to perfectly match the drapes I already had. I was able to kind of match that really well, and took it to a local upholsterer, and he just really went to town and made it great. So I love it. This pillow, I want to make sure I shout out this pillow. This is from the designer Sheila Bridges. Her collection, she has created a fabric called Harlem Toile, which is really, really popular. She has an amazing, you know, collection of things that use Harlem Toile fabric or prints or anything like that. You know, she's had collections at Bloomingdale's and Wedgwood. You know, it's just amazing. So I feel very honored that I was able to afford a pillow. So I have the pillow here in the house, and I love that it's kind of the original print and the original color with the oatmeal background. Works really well in here, and again goes along with the whole Parisian, I think, feeling, but also adding the touches of blackness that go along with that too, because of the scenery within that print. I love it. So yeah, that's my kitchen. So right before we go outside, I just want to point out two things in this little mudroom. First of all, this is like the last piece of original anything in the house, probably. It's a pantry that's been here since the very beginning. So I just repainted it, put new handles on, but this is like a really great pantry for food storage. I just want to say quickly about this wallpaper. I love, it's, you know, it's peel and stick, but I just love that it has like the botanical theme, which goes along with everything I love floral wise, but it had the right colors, you know, in the pale gray with the gold. So it really made a nice little kind of statement, you know, right here in this small space. Also, I painted the ceiling in here black, you know, to kind of go along with the palette in the living room. This door is original to the house. I love that it's like a split Dutch door, so it's like really cool for the summertime, you know, to be able to have it open without having it fully open. So that's great. So we're gonna go outside now into my floral studio, into my yard. So we're in my backyard now, on the way to the floral studio. I recently had my landscaping redone because my garage, as you can see, is almost a replica of my home, and I had it extended to include my floral studio. So we're going to go to the floral studio next. But because my backyard was entirely trashed after all that construction, it was really critical to get my landscaping done. And also because I'm going to be teaching classes in my floral room, so I wanted it to be a beautiful experience for anyone that comes over. So I wanted to make sure the backyard really looked reflective of that whole experience. So I want to give a big shout out to CLC Landscaping here in New Jersey. They're based in, I believe, Basking Ridge, if I'm not mistaken. And they did a fantastic job of, you know, finishing up my yard here. So we'll talk about that as well. So I love to sit back here in the summer and entertain. We've had a little rain, so I haven't put out all my cushions and everything, but you know, I have dining seating for 10. I have conversation seating. Over in that far corner is a koi pond. I don't have any fish in there right now because there's been so much construction going on, but normally I have little fishies back there, so I love that. Come and check on them. Part of the design that I worked on with CLC Landscaping was really being able to make this area have lots of flowers, be very pretty, really be reflective of like what I'm hoping people will feel when they come into my flower studio and to take classes, is to really feel like there's a lot of vegetation and plants here. So the designer that I worked with, Eric, he was fantastic about bringing my vision to life. I had a big, this is a great story, I had a big tree that was here in the yard, and unfortunately it started dying, it split, and I had to take it down. It made me so sad to have to cut down a massive tree. It was like one of these really tall trees that had been here probably, I don't know, maybe 100 years. So I felt terrible having to take it down, but it was a danger at that point. So because the roots were so widespread, there was really nothing else that would grow here. So we made the decision to make this a conversation fire pit area, which worked out really well. But when the guys took the tree down, I did ask them to cut me a slice of the trunk. So this is a slice of the trunk of the tree that I had put here in the center of this conversation pit. This will be where my fire pit sits on top of, like this little pedestal. I don't know, but for spiritual reasons, I thought it was great to be able to return the tree back to its original place, and eventually it'll disintegrate back into the soil and be back at home where it was once again. So I felt like that was my way of preserving the spirit of the tree in the yard. So yeah, I have a beautiful set of plants back here. I have tons of hydrangea, I have iceberg roses, I have allium, catnip, you know. Yeah, I'm just really excited to see all the flowers come in at some point. It was really important to kind of have this little privacy hedge that we added. I have a pink dogwood there, which is a perfect view right from the center of the doors here. So yeah, so this will be a great opportunity in the summertime, you know, and in the evenings to come out and have a glass of wine with friends, light up the fire pit when I put it out, and enjoy the new garden. So let's go inside the flower room. Okay, so welcome to my floral studio. So this is where I will be teaching classes. I can take up to 7 students in this room, but I also work out of here as like a home office. I like to call it my she shed when I'm home, you know, working a couple days a week from home. So I do spend a decent amount of time out here, whether it's just me or hopefully with students in the future. So just kind of taking a look at this room. Again, this was kind of the brainchild of myself and my contractor, Tico's Carpentry. You know, they really, really did execute my vision to a T. I so loved that they were so collaborative and great partners and problem solvers when we were kind of like putting this room together. So I will honestly say the first thing that sparked like my vision for this room, believe it or not, were these 3 lights. I got those lights at like Home Goods or Home Sense. I really, really love them, those baskets. And I love the idea of them being, you know, 3s and 3s. So that was kind of like a big inspiration to start with, to say, okay, I really want something that feels like it has some lightness and it feels feminine. So I really love that. The second thing that this room absolutely positively had to have was this table. Huge story on this table. I got this table literally 25 years ago. It was probably the first major purchase I ever made as an adult. I bought it while I was on a work trip in LA, and actually I bought it like without actually seeing it, because I got it from one of these like import-export people, and he only had pictures of it because it was like a door from like a school or a temple. I'm not even 100% sure that they were going to make into a table. So he found this one, which was all carved flowers, and serendipitously here we are, a table carved with flowers in a room meant for flowers. So it was almost meant to be. So this table has been in my condo in Chicago for the last 20 years, and it was quite the ordeal to move it here because it's incredibly heavy. It's antique, so a lot of people didn't even want to move it. So I ended up finding someone who was literally like willing to drive out there in like a van and pick it up, you know, just as a singular piece of furniture. I got these great little stools on Amazon that I put together myself one Saturday, which work perfectly, sliding underneath, and they're great for students. So yeah, so I always have flowers out here, which is awesome. It always smells really good in here too because of that. Other little things in here that I love. I had this armoire already. This was something that was also a part of the furniture that I had previously owned in Chicago, so I had it shipped out here. And the guys made a perfect size nook for it to just slide into the wall. So it's storage for some of my floral supplies, you know, a lot of what I keep in here when I'm doing jobs. So I really love that. This piece of artwork here, which is actually just a tapestry, late night scrolling, death scrolling on Instagram, and Anthropology was having an amazing sale. It was one of those 40% off, you know, get it right now sales. So I happened to get on there and went to the home section, and lo and behold, they had this tapestry. And I said, oh my God, that's perfect for my room. It's a flower. So I purchased it and it was great. So I was really glad I snagged that because it really gives some depth to the space, I think. The sofa from World Market, yet another clearance find. I was really happy about that. So again, all these elements started really coming together for me, and it really made the room kind of have the look and feel that I was hoping for. So as far as like floral design tips and tricks, I would say probably one of the things most people need to know is like, if you're gonna go buy flowers at say like Trader Joe's or the grocery store, that's totally okay. Just know that, you know, when you get those types of things, it's easy to make a really beautiful arrangement by just sticking to the same colors, you know, different flowers in the same colors. Really makes a nice arrangement, especially if you're a beginner. Another thing that helps the lifespan of your flowers is to put a little bit of bleach, like a cap full of bleach and a little sip of Sprite in your water. And that'll make your flowers stay fresh for a really long time. So this arrangement that I made here, it's a few days old. It's probably like 4 days old now. And the main thing that's changing colors is the peonies, which they do. They pop pretty quickly and then they change colors. But I still think it has a little beautiful life in it. It feels almost like a still life of sorts. You know, I kind of like the look and feel of this wild look. This is what I learned in floral school. Here's one of my books, one of my favorite books, Peonies. I have lots of books here to instruct me. But yeah, everything I have in here is definitely for the purpose of teaching and helping people get really comfortable with the idea of floral arranging for themselves, but also to just make a nice experience for ladies or whoever wants to take the class. Again, on the Parisian theme, I managed to score this map of Paris from my neighbor who was tossing it from her daughter's high school bedroom. And I said, hey, I can give it a new life with a new frame, and it belongs in here very nicely. This piece of artwork was actually painted by my neighbor, and I purchased it from her at one of our art fairs. So it's like her kind of impression of a Degas, you know, so I really love that. This is another one of the black Baroque pieces I was able to find on Etsy. So just carrying that kind of look through. Just a little plug for my own business. So here's my Roots Botanicals card. So designed these myself, but you know, these are my business cards, which I like to keep in a nice little marble tray here. So yeah, my flower room definitely has plenty of supplies, and you know, I have lots of things like candles. So if anybody needs me to make an arrangement for them for any special occasions, I have all the equipment to do just that. This little area is my library, if you will. So I have all of my floral books here that I use to inspire me. I reference them quite a bit. And this is the book, honestly, there was someone else that was featured on Homeworthy, so I want to make sure I give a shout out to the person whose book I actually have, another Homeworthy person that was featured. So I actually have her book. This is Sandra Sigmund. So she was an episode of Homeworthy, and serendipitously, I had her book. Years ago, when I first started my floral business, my parents being super supportive, and I appreciated that, took my logo, you know, and, you know, paid for me to get these aprons made for my staff. So I would do weddings, and I'd probably hire up to 6 or 7 girls sometimes to help me with weddings. So we needed to look official when we showed up. So we had these aprons to be a part of our uniform. So now my students, when they come and take class, will wear an apron to feel official. Like I said, this is my desk. I work out here, you know, when I'm working from home. So that's my computer stand, little things like that. Interestingly enough, this little desk fit perfectly here, but I scored it off of like Facebook Marketplace because a couple was having a baby and they needed to clear out a spare bedroom. So they actually had this desk, but they had never assembled it. It was still in the box. So I got lucky on that and scored that little desk to fit there. So yeah. I think my favorite thing about this home is that it has a lot of light. It happens to be a cloudy day today, but under normal circumstances, like my living room is like flooded with light from the French doors and the French windows, you know, which I usually open. Hopefully you'll see my puppy later, Leo. He's a French bulldog. He loves sitting in the window and barking at whoever walks by, but he also likes to sunbathe quite a bit. So I think another thing that I really love about the home is the layout. It's a very easy layout. It's not a lot of, you know, small nooks and crannies. The floor plan is very open, so you have plenty of space to move around and flow from room to room. So I do like that about the home quite a bit. So we're headed up to my second floor, but I wanted to pause here because there's two things I really love in this area. First, there's this piece of artwork that I got many, many years ago. I won it at an auction for a Rwandan kind of refugee organization. So I was really happy to be able to support that organization, but also get this amazing piece of art. And the second thing in this area is the house fan. That is the house fan from when the house was built. I guess it was their version of air conditioning at the time. And it just works with this really simple controller here. You turn it on and it pretty much like sucks all the hot air out of the top floor of the house. So it really does work like air conditioning. It's pretty amazing. So this is my guest bathroom, which I redid. Again, our friends at Tico's Carpentry. So it was definitely a very basic bathroom. One of the things that I think was the best decision we made was turning this into a pocket door, because the pocket door really allowed us to have more floor space in here, so the door wasn't swinging anymore, which blocked the tub. But pretty much everything is in the original space that it was in. We just did cosmetic upgrades, so new vanity, new tub, all new tile. I really, you know, the inspiration in here started with the macrame drapes that I actually have turned into a de facto shower curtain, if you will. The real shower curtain is this, but this is more decorative. Another lamp that I managed to find at Home Goods that was kind of in a clearance bin, but really was awesome. So it just sort of started the vision, I guess, of this being very natural, having a lot of wood accents. I really like it. Over in this little nook here, we had this kind of dead area. So we kind of made that into a little, you know, feature with the African art and some of the little, more of the reclaimed wood shelves. So just kind of carrying that motif through the house. So this is the primary bedroom. This is my room. And when I bought the house, the bedroom was the full kind of width of this top floor over here, but I didn't have a master bath. I didn't have a primary bath for myself. So I decided with my contractors to once again make a plan to add a bathroom to this bedroom. So this wall was not here before. We added this wall. Of course, we added the archway once again to kind of emulate some of the other arches that are in the house. I decided to bring that same color from the living room upstairs. So the color of the room is the caviar with the stark white trim. So it kind of, again, grounds the house and makes it feel cohesive as you move from room to room. Here is some more artwork from Erin Robinson. So we had the big piece downstairs, Toto. So these are a couple of her other two pieces of the Brooklyn Dolly line. So these were the first two pieces I purchased of hers, which I really loved, of the print, and had them framed. And just love the frames that I chose, and it kind of looks feminine, and once again it just feels like it works. So I've had those for quite a while. When it comes to the bed itself, you know, I was able to get this nice little bench to put at the end of the bed, you know, just something nice to put my shoes on and things like that. My sister was kind enough to purchase me this rug as a gift when my sister and brother-in-law, when I moved in. That was kind of like a housewarming contribution, so it worked perfectly. I love it. The bed itself, you know, when I lived in New York the first time, I lived in an apartment on the Upper West Side, and the owner of the apartment had a platform for the bed. And even though he didn't, you know, I had my own mattress and everything, I just loved the platform idea. So I bought the platform from him, you know, put my own mattresses on it, and now I have this bed that is super tall, but I do love it to have to climb into it. I'm a pillow girl, so I have tons of pillows on the bed. This chair rail I love having above the bed here because it allows me to like change out the artwork as much as I like. So right now I have this poster from the Cara Walker exhibit from 2014, which was at Domino's Sugar Factory. I really loved that whole art exhibit. It was really amazing. So that was a great memory from that. I've had these lamps for a really long time, but I do love, you know, the color of them, and I love the kind of geometric shapes of them. Since the bed is so tall, again, it's too tall for traditional nightstands. So I just use these like table rounds. They work really well in terms of like, you know, bedside tables. And I'm not a person who has a lot on my bedside table, so I don't mind it being like really clean. Leo, of course, gets to sleep in here. He sleeps in here with me. So this is yet another one of his beds, which you see he's in right now, waiting for a nap, probably waiting for this to be over. My contractor recently installed that hook there, which I really like. It's like a little valet. It allows me to just kind of hang, you know, whatever I'm going to wear the next day up and make a decision on if I think I should do it or not. But it's also a nice way to like let the wrinkles fall out of your clothes too overnight. So I like having that little valet hook. So this little area was, again, part of what we constructed with the bathroom now. It's not really fully a dressing area, I would say, but it is kind of like a nice little, you know, seating nook, if you will. I have this chair here, which I can, again, use to put on shoes and whatnot. This great little side table, martini table my sister gave me, has the bird and botanical motif that kind of goes along with other things in the house. But what I really love in here is this hutch that I found. It has become sort of like my de facto jewelry box, but just an oversized one. So I have all my jewelry in here, you know, bracelets, necklaces, you know, the whole nine. I mean, it's basically costume jewelry, but it's everything that I've collected over the years and really love. You know, like I said, I shop at a lot of antique shops and flea markets and any and everywhere. So I always find really interesting pieces when I go places. Like I found this really cool bracelet that I plan on wearing at some point this summer, you know, things like that. So I just really love, you know, having a place to have all of my jewels that I love. I'll just talk about these little guys for a second because I found these at an estate sale and I think the owner was using them as paperweights, but they're actually bracelets. And I believe they're from either Cameroon or Senegal, but each of these is like a pound. I mean, they're super heavy. If I had a skinny enough arm, they'd probably go up about this high, but they're super heavy. I just really love them. I love to look at them, so I'm glad I purchased them. They were a great find. So if we just take a look into the bathroom, so this was the little bathroom that we built. You know, it's really just a shower, you know, a very simple bathroom for myself. The things I love in here are, you know, we wanted to carry out the botanical theme again in the house. So the tile is a botanical kind of pattern tile. I was able to once again find this dresser at Anthropology on some other, you know, death scrolling evening sale. And it was a dresser that just happened to fit in this space perfectly. And my contractor just retrofitted it to be a vanity. So he added the holes for the piping and everything like that. Once again, at the urgency of my friend who's the lighting designer, you know, lights are the jewelry of the home. So I went ahead and splurged on these lamps from Soho Home. So Soho House has their own collection of home furnishings. So I splurged on these. I found this mirror, which was really interesting. And again, had this kind of leaf motif at World Market, believe it or not. And it just worked perfectly, you know, in terms of its size and the look and feel. So I really love it. You know, my contractor just added again, we found some more of the reclaimed wood. And then I found this botanical drawing of a flower at another, antique market. So again, it worked within the space, so I really loved it. The shower, I love the Zalige tile from Tile Bar. It just made it a really nice, clean look. So I really like that. And of course, all the gold fixtures kind of go along with the rest of the look of the house as well. So yeah, just really love the bathroom here. Again, another pocket door we added, just a space saving, method. So really love that. What home means to me is a place of respite, somewhere that you can feel 100% safe, comfortable. You never have to have any regrets. I used to say to friends, especially when it comes to decorating, I was like, hey, there's nothing that a throw pillow can't fix. So don't be afraid of decorating and making mistakes. So I feel like your home is a place to be a canvas for your personality, for the things that you love. I've never looked at my home as a place that needed to be a replica of a particular style or a particular store, like you buy everything on the display. That's never really been my particular taste. So I love being able to have a place that feels like a repository of all the things I really do love. And it's important to just kind of know that you have to enjoy your home while you're in it and while you have it. It's always going to be a work in progress. You don't ever have to feel like it's finished or done, because it's a living thing just like you. So I feel like your home is something that grows with you, and it changes and sort of reflects who you are at any given time. So I really do love that.
Today we're in Melbourne, Australia, visiting florist and gardener Petrina Burrill, whose spring garden is a living reflection of her creativity and travels around the world. With thousands of tulips and ranunculus in bloom, wisteria draping in soft color, and blossoming trees framing every corner, Petrina's garden feels like a story unfolding room by room.
So this is my beautiful wisteria workshop, and I love her. So I've called her Wendy. Everyone has a name in my garden.
Each space in her garden carries memories of her journeys, from cycling through the tulip fields in Holland to wandering through the Royal Botanic Gardens. It's a vibrant celebration of nature, beauty, and the joy of seeing one's hard work come to life. To watch the full episode ad-free and hear more about Petrina's journey as a gardener, scan the QR code on screen or click the join button below. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see, I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Patrina. Welcome to my garden in Melbourne, Australia. Come on in. Hi Homeworthy, I'm Petrina from Melbourne, Australia, and I'm a florist and a gardener. So what we're going to see today is my spring garden, which I absolutely love. So thousands of tulips and ranunculi and the wisteria, she's in bloom, and the blossom trees. And all my hard work is coming to fruition, so I can't wait to show you. So this is my front little nook. I have two little nooks in the front garden. And what you'll learn today is little tips and tricks for what you can do in a small space. So along here we have, it's like a party. More is more. That's kind of the way I designed. So here we have some peonies that they're just about to pop. That's an Aisho peony. Her name's Hillary. And I put old tulips through here in and about the roses, which I love. And my little sweet peas. You'll see lots of sweet peas climbing up the roses. And that's really good if you don't have much space. So you can just kind of get them to host your sweet peas, the roses. I also grow them up the trees. Around here we have this beautiful old magnolia, and she's gorgeous. In summer she gives these most beautiful generous white blooms. And then through this space here, every year I do something different. So this year I've got a whole little waft of tulips going down this gorgeous little drift, and I put in these azaleas here, and they're called Abla because they're drought tolerant and it gets pretty warm down here in Melbourne, Australia. So they're fantastic. You just look after them for the first year and then they'll look after themselves. And I have my David Austin roses here. So I love David Austins. So that's a gorgeous Graham Thomas. And when Graham flowers, he's just forever giving. Beautiful double heads, big yellow, double cup blooms. And in here I have hiding, there's going to be a beautiful pink Cecilbrunner and my snowball bush, which I absolutely love because there'll be big white fluffy pom-poms soon. Here we have a flowering cherry. She's almost finished now, but I look out from my bedroom window and I just see these white fluffy clouds, which I absolutely love. Lots of wheelbarrows, don't fall over. every time I see a wheelbarrow on the side of the road, I put it in the boot of my car. I think, aha, I'll fill you with flowers. So when I was little, I always wanted to be a florist. From the age of 6, I wrote in my diary, when I grew up, I want to be a florist. And so when I was 16 and you had to go off at school and do work experience, I knocked on the local florist door and I said, can I please come and work with you? Anyway, 2 weeks later, it turned into a job, and that's how my floral career began. And then I just worked my way up, and then I got into some of the big flower houses. But I never wanted to work full-time as a florist because I never wanted to curse a flower. So I would always just do it casually on the weekends in between going to uni, and I studied comms and having a full-time job. So it was always just a hobby on the side. And then I've always gardened, and in COVID, everything closed down, but people needed flowers. So my friends were like, oh, can you make me up a bouquet? And my garden has always had thousands and thousands of bulbs in it. And I said, sure, no worries. So I made them up a bouquet. So then I flipped my Instagram account from private to public, and it kind of blew up. And that's when I realized, oh, okay, maybe planting, 12,000 or 14,000 bulbs isn't normal. And I just continue creating my bouquets with homegrown flowers that I love. So I have lots of little trinkets and things around my gardens, and I love wind chimes. I love the elements, and wind is one of my favorite elements. And I hear them sleeping when I'm at night. I think they send my husband crazy, but I love them. And there are 2, I just kind of collect them along the way, and they're out the back and out the side, but I just think that's part of being a gardener. You kind of bring the magic of the elements into your heart. Love that. So the space I love this notion of within a garden, there are rooms within rooms. So I have my wisteria room, and then I have my Japanese maple blossoms, and this is a little room here that I work in. And then if you go down to the lawn, I have my ranunculus space. So I love this notion of rooms in rooms. And I used to be a flight attendant and travel the world. So there's little reminders of all my holidays and everywhere I've been. So my tulips, of course, remind me of Holland and riding my bike through all the fields. And then I love the ranunculus, the Italian ranunculus, and my favorites, the big fluffy skirts. And then of course the roses out the front. I have a beautiful rose garden, which reminds me of Kew Gardens in the United Kingdom, and I absolutely love them. So I just try and, whatever evokes memory, I like to plant it. I like to plant and bring joy. So this next little section of my garden is called my rose garden, and I absolutely love her. So there are over 20 to 25 roses just in this tiny little pocket. Here I have a wall of beautiful David Austins, and they're pinks and peaches and whites. They're just about to pop. I can see one little face looking at me, and each year they've probably been in now for, I'd say, about 7 years. So they're quite, they're vigorous, they grow really well, they're disease resistant, and I absolutely love them. And then along the front fence, I have 2 climbing roses. One's called New Dawn, and she's going to be a beautiful pink, and she literally covers the entire front fence in roses. And next to her we have Claire Austin. So David Austin made this rose for his daughter Claire, and he spent $3 million perfecting her. So I think she's a lucky girl, and she's a beautiful white climbing rose. So she just fills the garden, she just comes into her own space. And when they're all out, it's just like a big rose party. I love it. So I think as a gardener, it's like life. There are constant challenges all the time, but I'm an organic gardener, so if I do try and get rid of the aphids, I'll be spraying bicarb and using all these things like vinegar and eggshells to get rid of snails and things like that. But as a gardener, I kind of think like that's just life. things will go wrong, and that's okay. And I always say, well, there's always next year. So some years, you know, the powdery mildew will be really bad and the ranuncs or the roses will get their black spot. But then, you know, that's just the cycle. I think it usually comes at the end of the season as well, when they're tired. They've been working hard for months and months producing these beautiful flowers. And they're probably just saying, I need a rest. I don't blame them. So I just kind of think that's part of Mother Nature. And, you know, she'll come back fresh and beautiful next year. So in my garden, there are lots of little, I call them Mother Nature's beautiful mistakes. So this gorgeous hollyhock, she is going to be massive. And she flew in from George's garden across the road, which I love. I don't know what color she is. And like, she just landed there. So if anyone falls, I just let them go. So I can't wait. There's like 3 major shoots. So she's going to be huge. I can't wait to see who she is. Come out the back and I'll show you where my fairy tale is. So we're coming up the side of the house now into the wisteria room. Just watch out because she's grown herself all the way around the house this year. So this is my beautiful wisteria workshop and I love her. So I've called her Wendy. Everyone has a name in my garden. She's about 45 years old and she shares the pergola with a Virginia creeper, and the two actually get on really well. So come summer, you can sit under here and it can be fully raining and you just won't get wet. It's quite extraordinary because the coverage is really thick and lush and green. So she's beautiful in summer, and then come autumn, she's the most incredible, beautiful, fiery red. And I grow the Virginia creeper all the way down to the floor. So you literally walk into this room and we eat a lot of meals under here. She's just beautiful. And of course, Wendy, this is her time now in spring. Absolutely love her. And this is where I create and make all my work under here as a florist. And I just cut from the garden, bring in the flowers, and I've got this beautiful old workbench here. It came from Vic Rhodes. She's absolutely gorgeous. From the 40s, they say. Hardwood. I should probably look after her more, but she does the trick. She's extremely heavy, so she just stays there. And I use her as a flower bench, so I put a lot of my flowers on the bench there. And yeah, work under there in the wisteria. And then I come into this space here, which I absolutely love. So when we first moved in, the deck was huge. It was massive, and I thought, oh, it's too big. So in response to that, I thought, well, I'll just fill it up with pots, basically. And that includes big wine barrels, and I would put in here my flowering cherry in a wine barrel, and they actually work quite well. So she's been in that barrel for 13 years now, and she's fine. So she's a beautiful flowering Mount Fuji, and she shares the space with this gorgeous one, who too is about 12 and a half years old. And it just goes to show that if you put a tree in the right space, she has no competition, direct sunlight, she's loving herself. And she just, every year, she will grow at least 20, 25 centimeters a year. And her beautiful V shape, I think, just frames the garden really, really well. So my favorite time in the day in the garden would have to be early, when all the birds are waking up. So I hear the beautiful bird song, and I'll often come outside and I'll walk around and with my coffee, and it's just time before the kids wake up, time before all the madness starts. And I'll just have a stroll and a wander through the garden, and it's just beautiful. It's just myself and the flowers and the birds, and you can feel the change in the temperature, and you can feel the day just starting to begin. It's really beautiful. So one of my favorite tips is planting in crates. So my dad used to do this when I was a little girl. And the whole point of it is, if you have a space that you want to fill up with flowers, for example, my deck, basically they're just crates. They'd be about 20 centimeters deep and maybe about 50 centimeters wide. And I fill a third of the bottom with leaf litter from the trees, and then potting mix, premium potting mix. And then I put about 40 tulips in each crate, and a bit of soil on top, and then I grow them in the sunshine. And then you just get this whole crate of joy, basically. And they're great because you can move them around. So if you have like a hole in the garden, you can just pick them up, and they're portable garden beds. So they're really versatile. I can't recommend them highly enough. And when I finish with the tulips, basically then I can put in the summer flowers. Like last year I had zinnias. This year I'll do it again. Zinnias and all these happy larkspurs and beautiful flowy flowers for summer. So coming down here, we have what was originally my dad's veggie patch. So dad built this for me 10 years ago, and we had a good laugh because it did have veggies in it for 1 year. And of course I converted it to the flower bed. But my kids love this patch. So each year they just plant whatever they love. And it's every year it's a surprise, which I love. It gets full sun. And this year we've got some foxies, so they'll be quite high. They've put in some larkspurs, ranuncs, daffodils, poppies. Basically, it's just a colourful feast, which I love. And then behind, I've just got some peonies growing in pots, and they've been in there for 5 years, and they produce flowers. So they say the first year they sleep, the second year they leap, and the third year they creep. So hopefully we'll get more this year. Last year I got about 10. I was like, woohoo! Over here we have my ranunc lawn, which I absolutely love. So I always find a garden changes with your needs. So as you change, your needs change, so does your garden. So when the kids were little, this was one big lawn that they could play on. But then they started to use the garden. They were reading in the garden more, playing their music in the garden. So I started taking up the garden beds. And basically I just turned them into flower beds, which I love because the pollinators, it's full of bees come springtime. And I also in summer let the grass grow really long for the bees, and they love it. Everyone's welcome in my garden. So this tree here, she was in a wine barrel, and then I just let her go, and I call her my ice vovo because the rootstock has just grown out, and I love that. I just let her go. She's this beautiful white blossom. I also use her in a lot of bouquets. I really like her as a base. And then at the top I have this beautiful pink flowering Kenzan, and so it's two-toned. And then underneath I put in my pink ranuncs. So I call her my ice vovo, which is a biscuit that we absolutely love here in Australia. And then around here, this cute little section, this one here, I've got a flowering quince, and she's great. She produces fruit, so we make quince jam from her. And there's another snowball tree. And these gorgeous euphorbias, they're fantastic if you want to fill a space. Like they're all self-sown, they fell there, I let them grow, and they're drought tolerant, they're tough as boots, and they just give that beautiful texture to your garden. I love them. Azaleas down here. Double tulips, and of course one of my favorites, forget-me-not. I absolutely love her, so I grow her for her name and her beautiful color. And usually she sticks on your top, so you can wear her when you want to. And then around here we have another gorgeous Fuji, and she too will get quite tall. I don't know that I'm too happy where I planted her, so I'm always learning as a gardener. You know, nothing's ever perfect. She kind of gets lost a bit behind in the wall, the white potato vine and the jasmine, so you don't really get to see her. So I think I might move her into the ranunc patch after she's finished blossoming. We have a move around, and I think I'll move her there, then we can. This is a cute little bird bath hanging from my tree. Yeah, everyone's name. So this is Lady Diana because she is absolutely stunning. She's a Shiroteo, double blossom, pink. Oh, look at her. She's just about to wake up, and she's just this gorgeous big blousy pink show. And then under here, I got this cute little bird bath from a flea market. It's so cute. And the birdies come visit. I need to fill it up actually. It's also good for the bees. It's really important to keep water out on those hot days, especially for the bees. So I'll put some twigs in there so they've got somewhere to land, and then they can come and have a drink when they want to. And underneath the canopy, it's just ranuncs and tulips under here. And when they finish flowering, then I'll turn them over as well for the summer crops coming in. Zinnias will be here. I love to put zinnias, so they'll be so high and it'll be a feast of summer flowers. So I love, as I mentioned, flowering wheelbarrows, but this one is extra special for me because it belonged to my pa, so mum's mum. And he was the Shire Gardeners where he grew up in Mathara in New South Wales. And I remember being a little girl and I'd go to work with him, and he would show me the roses. So we'd go on a rose tour. And whenever we'd go back to his house, it was always full of different flowers. So I just love this idea that that's his wheelbarrow now, and it lives on in my garden, and it's always full of flowers. And for me, that's my pa watching over me. I would have to say my favorite room would be the Wisteria room because she's so beautiful at this time of the year. And each cane, I meticulously pull her through and wire her up like an art installation. So I like to think that she's the boss and I have to move around her when I go through the garden. And I just love this idea that, you know, you can create and work in a room of wisteria. And my workshop's there, so I make all my flowers underneath her. So up here we have a native garden, and the reason I grow natives is because it's underneath these huge 30-foot gum trees, and the gum trees, they're quite competitive. They take all their energy. So one year I did plant 5,000 ranuncs on this little hill and it looked amazing, but it was a one-hit wonder. So I'm working with the environment. So all these beautiful natives, they share the space with some salvias. So these guys are drought tolerant as well. And what I've noticed is the birdies love it. So I'm making little homes and places for the birds to come and eat and play in. And I love that. And behind these beautiful gums, I have another compost heap as well. And through here we have kangaroo paws, grevilleas, grasses, and I've planted out, which will be interesting to see, lots of globe thistles. So there's about 200 on the hill, and they'll come up tall with a stick, and they have these beautiful purple sphere balls. So that will add some height throughout my little native garden. This is Lavender. So Lavi is my head gardener. She's part of the furniture. Come on, Lavi. She's so cheeky. Whenever I run floral bouquet workshops, she will be right in there with everybody, or garden tours, or Lavender, learning to garden. Lavender is right there in front of the camera. Yeah, she's so cute, Chungus. She has a sister running around too, but she's really shy, so we probably won't see little buttons. So I love paths in a garden because they show you where to go. Down here, this is my little gravel path. I get all the stones in little bags, I bring them in myself, and I get out the rake, scrape them in. I'm forever working on this path, but she leads to here. So that makes me happy, underneath the blossom, and I'll often come out here and have my cup of tea, just me and the flowers. And then over here, we have beautiful wall of roses, and they're just about to bloom under the jacarandas. So come summertime, this is a really special place. We have the lime green and the gorgeous Gladitsia sunburst tree and these purple jacarandas. For in Australia, that means Christmas is coming. So thank you for coming on a garden tour with me, and now I would love to make you a bouquet. So come through to my Wisteria workshop. So I'm just going to make a beautiful garden style bouquet, which I absolutely love. And I like to see my flower bouquets, it's just like you go and you would pick a whole lot of garden flowers and put them together. So I started with a little bed of sweet pea, and I always say, some people would like you call it your base really. And I just have a little base here of sweet pea, nice and flowy, all that movement through there. Oh, Lavender. She's always with me, this cat. She's my little shadow. Okay, and then there's some beautiful little snapdragons. And I'll just make a little love heart. If you kind of keep your shape, this will be a little love heart garden bouquet. I love their colours. Tiny little bit of tinge, pinky mauve through the edge. 3 of those as such. And then we'll get our rock stars. I always call these our Taylor Swifts, so the leading ladies of your bouquet. These beautiful garden roses. And we'll just place them in, just put their heads above their bed so we can see their gorgeous faces as such. I always find if your flowers move down, just keep lifting up their heads. So we've got 3 Taylor Swifts, and then I'll add a few more little spray roses, which are like the backup singers for Tay Tay, the doo-bop girls. A beautiful little pink spray rose. And of course freesias. They just smell heavenly. I love growing freesias, probably one of my favourite spring flowers to grow. And once you put them in the ground, they'll just keep coming back year after year. They're really low maintenance. You don't have to do anything with them. And then some cute little garden ranunculus. Add a little bit of height. Keep it nice and tall so you can get that movement and that flow through the bouquet, just like you'd see in the garden. See how we're moving there? I always say when you create your bouquet, think of the ocean. You know how you see the beautiful waves and you get that movement and that flow? Same in the garden. Like I try and just keep movement and flow happening in the garden, in my bouquets. And then there's beautiful little sweet peas. That colour, just incredible. And again, we'll put some height into the bouquet here. Get that flow happening. So we can just fill it out with sweet peas. So this year I've got sweet peas growing all up my pear trees as well in the front garden. Up all the roses, and there's a lot growing up the flowering cherries as well. And again, that just saves space. And then come summer, I have all these flowering trees with all these gorgeous sweet peas. And sweet peas are beautiful. They're cut and come again. So you can just snip them and then the flowers will keep coming and you'll have months and months of beautiful flowers all through the home. I love the flowers where you can just cut and come again. And they're really cheap to grow as well. You just buy a few seeds and then I save the seeds for next year and the year after. So I'm in about my 6th year of growing sweet peas and saving their seeds. That's also my mum's favourite flower, which I absolutely love. So I often will grow flowers for memory and for people I love. So I've got some nice movement and flow happening here. I always say you're as good as the flowers you've got to work with, so you can't go wrong. If I was to make this bouquet again, she would be different again. So I always say when I'm teaching bouquet making, you know, you've got nothing to lose, just try. Every time I do this, it would look different again. These gorgeous Canterbury bells. They're fun to grow and they're a little unruly in the garden. The plant itself is kind of just flows out. It's a little unruly, but they're an extraordinary flower and they'll last at least 3 weeks once you've cut them. They're beautiful colours. Let's pop a little bit through here. So we can see our Tay Swifts. And we've got our backup singers, our little spray roses. Just have a look whose head needs to be poking up. I always find with flowers, you know, so much of it's practice as well. Just practice and practice and practice again. Some little ranuncs. Garden ranuncs are a beautiful flower to grow. You can save their corms. So whenever my ranuncs each year, I feed them as they're dying back. And then I bring up the corms every single year and I store them under the stairs, so like away from the rats and the possums and the pests in the shed. And then I bring them out again year after year. And they grow babies as well. So once you have them for life. The sweet peas. Go. Oh, I just want to be a flower. She's beautiful. Add a few more freesias for fragrance. And we've got that movement and that flow. So just as you'd go to a garden and you'd see them growing as Mother Nature intended, that's how I love to make my bouquets. Just natural and flowy. We can add a pop of Status. Just gorgeous colour, this one. Status is another fantastic drought tolerant plant to grow. Tough as boots, and she comes in 3 or 4 different colours, like a white, a pink, a deep purple, this beautiful lilac colour. Watch your hand, you'll probably get like a sore hand. And again, that's just kind of practice. If your hand gets sore, I always say just put your flowers down, have a little break, and then pick them up when you're ready to go again. What my garden means to me, it's an extension of my heart, and for me it represents beauty and joy. And to me, joy is one of the most beautiful things in the world. And if I can give joy to people in some way, through my work and my art, then that makes me happy. So I think gardens are a garden of joy, I like to see her as. Thank you, Homeworthy, for coming on the garden tour with me. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.
Hi, Homeworthy. My name is Molly Ford. Welcome to my Brooklyn townhouse. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Molly Ford. I'm a small business owner and floral designer, and we are in my townhome in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. My husband and I moved to New York about 6 years ago, and we had absolutely no money, but we were super excited to be in New York. And we ended up moving to Bushwick, and we had a small railroad-style apartment living next to a concrete factory, and there was graffiti just everywhere. And it was a perfect home for the first New York apartment. And then, like most New Yorkers, we had a wish list. We wanted washer, dryer, dishwasher, a backyard would be ideal. So we just had this wish list on Zillow, and we would refresh it every once in a while, and then we ended up finding this apartment. And when we saw it, we just immediately knew that this was something that could be such a sweet space for us. So it's a rental, it's a 2-story apartment with a backyard. Having your own space, private space, an outdoor nature location is so special because I feel like I can have my coffees outside and read my book and host friends, and it just feels like a luxury in New York when it's something that I didn't even know I could have. And so this home feels so special. We've hosted so many parties, so many friends have stayed here with us, and it just feels like such a treat to be able to have this as our home. Today I'm going to take you on a tour of my home. I'm going to show you really special pieces that have made our home feel very special and personal. I'm also going to take you into my garden where we're going to cut a few of very fresh blooms and make an arrangement that feels very natural. It's something that I would do if I'm having friends over for dinner. I would go in the backyard and just cut some flowers or greenery or branches. And we're gonna do that today. I'm gonna teach you a few simple tricks that if you're going on a walk and you secretly pick some things, how you can bring it into your New York apartment and make it feel special. So welcome to the second floor. This is my living room. It is one of the things that took my breath away whenever I looked at this apartment, especially because of the ceilings and the walls. They're all original, which feels really special. It's that pre-war New York townhouse, crown molding that feels so desirable. And yeah, we filled it with a lot of antiques and a lot of furniture that feels special to have these little moments. Some really special pieces to me. This painting is from the Cotswolds. I went to the Cotswolds with a few of my girlfriends for my 30th birthday, and we had just finished touring the Highgrove Gardens, and it was a very beautiful experience. And it's in this town that has a ton of antiques, and we went to all these stores and I saw this painting and I fell absolutely in love, especially because of the frame. There's little roses, and then the actual painting is just so beautiful. So we paired it with another hand-painted photo, which we just got from a market in Brooklyn. This pillow is really fun. We got it in Maine. I wasn't sure if I was gonna get it or not because I kind of thought it was gonna be too large, but it's perfect with this 6-penny chair that's just massive. 3 people can sit on it, which is so fun. This stool is also really lovely for me. I love the drama of how tall it is. And also I love this vase on top. I got this at the Dumbo flea market, and then I got this from an online Instagram antique dealer. Just little moments. We love these little knickknacks, putting them throughout the space. This is an antique. I forget the name of who designed it, but it's one of the original ones that there's now a lot of copies of, but it was really fun to have that. We had it in our last apartment, and we knew that we wanted a bit of chrome with the wood, which in my mind was a little bit odd, but it actually works really well, which is fun. We also have these pocket shutters that don't open, and I'm determined that I'm gonna open them one day. But for now, they don't. They're painted over. I'm a little bit nervous on what's inside, but I do love when you walk past homes in New York, they have those pocket shutters that close. And I just think it's a beautiful architect moment where we don't see that a lot anymore. And now I want them in my home. And maybe I can get it one day. This table is really fun because we got it at the Chelsea flea market in the city. And we went there because one of my girlfriends, she was looking for a smaller version of this. This is what we had. And my husband and I, we saw this really long version, and we were the drama of the size feels really fun. There was one piece that had this little headrest, and they said that it could be a bed. And so we were that feels like a fun thing to add to our space. So we bought the big one and sold the small one to our girlfriend. And it's super heavy, really fun. I love these indentions. I don't know if they're for anything, but I love it. It's such a cool piece. And then these rugs, they're really fun too because we bought just one from Etsy, from Morocco. And it was during COVID and it was taking a long time. It got stuck in customs and the Etsy shop was really kind and they sent us another one. And then both of them came in. And so then we had two really massive blue rugs and one was just like in storage for a long time because we didn't have enough room in our space. And then when we saw this room, we thought we could just like put the rugs together and make this like really long moment. And so then that's what we did. And it adds so much color and blue is like, I feel very drawn to blue with interior design. I don't know why, but it's very calming to me. And so I've enjoyed having it in the space. Another piece that I love is a stool. It is from Facebook Marketplace. Hudson found them. It's a set of two. And they have these like little bells on them. And they're really fun. It's just a weird little stool, but I love it. This is the painting that we originally got from Amarel. She's a lovely Brooklyn artist. She used to be our barista at our old coffee shop. And we just fell in love with like the colors and the texture and all the shapes. And so this is our first piece that we've ever purchased that was like an investment piece. And I feel like it balances a lot of the colors with the wood and all of our little antique tchotchkes. This is another cool lamp that we got from, again, Good Behavior. I'm obsessed with it. This is like a suede center. And then this pleated shade, more hydrangeas and smoke bush now. All these little moments, they feel really special. This is a cool matchbook, like holder. So you could take out your matches and then hopefully light them in here. Oh, that was quite large, more than I expected it to be. But yeah, we just got it engraved with Ford. I think it's really fun, a funky little piece. More so display than obviously use, but it definitely works. We got the Samsung TV. It's the same as the frames, except it has the legs to it. It's so heavy, it's like 80 pounds. So every time we go to move it, there has to be two people. We got this because, well, one, it was on sale. It was cheaper than the frame TV. And a lot of the walls in our old apartment, especially, they weren't like super sturdy. And so we just felt nervous about putting a TV on the wall. So we decided to get one that was like on the ground. And I love it. It's so big and such a statement. We can put it like in the middle and it feels like an art piece, or we can put it against a wall. And it's a place where like people can come in and watch like music videos and just like hang out, or we can like have movie nights. And it feels, all of our pieces are so large. And I think the balance of the space with like these larger pieces, we're not uncomfortable with something like feeling like it's so large, because I think that it balances itself out, especially with the high ceilings and everything. The first thing that drew me to this home was the crown molding and the beautiful ceilings. I feel like it has so much light and it allows so much space. My husband and I love antiques, so the first thing was like pulling in the things that we already have, mixing in old with new. We love like grand rugs and color and fabric and patterns. And so our design method was basically just like pull in everything that we like and see if it works. And the space is so beautiful that I think anything could work, but it is so special to have those like little moments of like when we were traveling, we had this picture frame, or we have a beautiful like pottery, like ceramicist friend, and they have their art in our space. And it just feels really special to pull in so many meaningful things to make this home feel special and make it feel like it's something that we can like pull people in and feel excited about. Oh, hi, Homeworthy. I bet you didn't know that I had pocket doors. They're so much fun. This is my first time having them in my home, and we shut these off every night and like make this room very dark and cozy. We have 2 sound machines that we turn on at night, but it feels fun to have these doors where it can just like close off from the living room. This becomes a bedroom, and then during the daytime, it's like one open space. So this is our bedroom. It is really lovely. One of the most important things or special things to me is the ceiling. There are moments that even have like little flowers on the ceiling. And for me as a florist, obviously I love that stuff. And it just feels really romantic and special. And all of the door frames, all of the like even doors. There's just so much texture with it. I could stare at it literally all day long. There's a lot of pieces in this room that feel really special to me. One is this room divider, also Facebook Marketplace. We got it from this like Danish man, and he had it for a really long time. He brought it over and lived in New York with it for a really long time. And we got it because of the color, the stripes, the wood. It like can fold up, but it makes this space where it's like you're walking into our bedroom, but you're also like a little bit sectioned off from our bed, but also still open. And it's just such a beautiful piece. I'm actually obsessed with it. Another beautiful piece in this room is this cabinet. We also got it from Good Behavior. It stores all of our like knitwear inside of it, and then it has this cute little shelf for all of our like perfumes and colognes, more hydrangeas, more like grasses. I love having these like organic, natural pieces in the space without having just like flowers everywhere. Like this is less upkeep than like a bouquet of flowers in my home. So I enjoy that since it's also my job to like have the flowers. But I love this piece. It's like so beautiful with all of its little shutters and the texture of it. This is my desk. She is a really fun piece because it's like an old vanity desk. You can have these like pockets that pop out, and you're supposed to have like a very specific skirt with it where it like slides onto this and you can like fold it around. I don't have that skirt, so I just have this like fabric going around it, but it's so like dainty and cute and special, and I really love sitting there. This is also a beautiful painting. This is the one that I was talking about earlier, where it's like all green and brown and red with this one little red pop. I think it's so special. And so then I paired it with this red lamp, which is attached to the wall, that we got from Etsy. And it's just such a fun little moment for me to like wake up and see this red and like feel like inspired by all the colors. I think it's so beautiful. This lamp is really fun. Our friends were leaving New York and they had it in their apartment, and they wanted to continue to have it like live within the friend group. And so they gave it to us, and it's like such a fun lamp because you can move all the pieces and like spread out the light, but then also like make it really tight. And it's fun because at night it lights up the ceiling and like it shows all of the beautiful texture on the ceiling, which I really enjoy. And now she's dancing. The back of the bed are like headboard, also antique from Good Behavior again. It's like a beautiful piece, and it's just this solid wood that we wanted to like bounce off of all of the other wood in the space. So one of my sister-in-laws, she painted the painting in the kitchen. And then this is my youngest sister-in-law. She made this quilt for Hudson for Christmas. And I think she made it in the matter of like a week, which kind of blows my mind because I don't sew. But she's very creative, and I will keep it for the rest of my life. It's very special. This side table is a stool that we got from the same online Instagram antique dealer as in the living room, this one and the one on my bedside. They're so fun. We knew we wanted bedside tables, but we didn't know what we wanted. And we're not people that like want things to match, as you can tell. And so we were like, let's do stools. And so this was one of the stools. I love it. It's like a perfect little piece for us to put our books and our water, and if we have coffee in the morning in bed, we can just put it right there. It's great. Because this is a townhouse and now there's multiple units in the space, a few of the doors used to lead into rooms that they now don't lead into. Like behind our bed, there are those massive doors, and originally they would be leading into this room. They don't anymore, and I don't know why, because it would be very cool. But this is our bathroom, and it's very dramatic because of this bathtub. And when we first like walked up the stairs and saw the bathroom, and then I saw the living room and the walls, I was like, I don't know if I can live without this apartment. I will take a bath and watch like our backyard, and there's birds that come. You can see our cherry tree in the back through the window. You can see the weeping willow swaying. It's a really peaceful place, and I feel very thankful for it. And it is a bathroom that I didn't know I could have in New York, but here we are. So the bathroom's very white, and I wanted something that had a little bit more color and texture. And so there's this basket that we decided to put on the wall, and it's just, I don't know where it's from or what it was made for, but for us, it's a piece of art that just hangs up on the wall. That creates a little bit more texture when I'm looking in the mirror. Instead of just a white wall, I see, color. I feel very inspired by color, texture, and shape. I think that with floral design, it's very special to have space in your arrangements. I don't like it when it's like all just super tight together. I love white space and movement. I love grasses that will flow in the wind. I love dainty little flowers and then big like peonies or an orchid. And I think having that variety of like shape size from like something super small to something really large or something really tall and like a shorter arrangement, just having that depth feels really special and important to me. Also playing with color feels really important. And I bring that into my home as well. There's so many pieces in my apartment that are very like old world, where it's like really old wood. It's a little bit funky. If you push down on one side, the table might break. Like, it's just, I love things that aren't incredibly precious, but things that are old, that feel important, that have a story to them. So this is our entryway. We want this to be a space where you can take off your shoes, take off your jacket, but also feel comfortable. One of my favorite pieces in this entryway is this sweet little stool. The size is perfect, especially for opening the door and someone being able to sit and enjoy themselves. This is my husband's music studio. It's a very special place where he can make all of his music. Something that was super important for us was the sound in this room, and also it's our guest bedroom. So we pull out this couch and people sleep in here. And so we wanted it to be very cozy and warm and feel very like approachable. So the coolest project that I think we've done in this space is covering all the walls with this like velvet brown fabric. And we would buy all these panels. They're literally just like curtains, but we would buy the panels, put them up and be like, we need more. We need more. So we bought, I don't even know how many panels of curtains to cover this, but I love how it goes over the corners and it just flows throughout the whole room. We have a beautiful Picasso print over his piano. This piano is like one that they do for travel. It's super old school. This like folds up into like a trunk, so it's like transportation. I'm probably butchering it because I'm not a musician, but this room is like really special for me because he gets to create so much in here and it feels like a beautiful space and a guest bedroom, so come on over. So our old home was a railroad style apartment and our dining room was also the music studio, and it just felt like there wasn't enough space. It was truly just a desk with like a few pieces of like instruments. And when we found this apartment, we knew that this room was going to be a music studio. It just felt kind of right. It felt like if we could have our old IKEA couch and have that into like a fold out bed for our guests and also be able to have a space where Hudson can create, that felt really special and important. And so the floor in this room feels lovely, so we wanted to like keep it exposed a little bit. This room is very different than the other rooms because of the fabric. The other spaces, we fill the walls with like art or leave it white and allow the furniture to breathe. But this room feels just so different and warm and lovely when you walk in. It's like a landing place for a lot of people, especially when we have a party, because it's like right by the entry. And sometimes I'll come in here and people are just like hanging out on the couch when the whole party's going on, like in the backyard or in the kitchen. So it just feels safe and warm in here. And our whole design concept was to like make it approachable and like a really lovely place where he can like be in his own space and just create and feel comfortable. A really fun piece in the apartment is this bookshelf. Hudson found it from Facebook Marketplace. And it's If I open this, it's all of his stuff coming out, but it's basically like an old secretary desk. You can like type over here. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's very like narrow, which I thought was perfect for the space. He needed something to just be able to store stuff, put all of the miscellaneous like instruments and sound stuff up there. It's fun. Something that's really fun about this lamp shade, it's from a company called Tulip. And basically their whole concept is taking like the boob lights that everyone has in their apartments that aren't super beautiful, and it's a really easy installation. And it's just like this beautiful light that you just pop over. So that was fun to incorporate as well. Instead of changing the whole light fixture, just put a little lampshade over it. That's all for this room. Let's go into the kitchen and dining room. So this is the kitchen. It kind of blew my mind because of its size and the amount of storage that we have. Unfortunately, I am not a great cook or baker, but I'm trying. It's a goal for this year. But something that's really important about this space is, again, the ability to host. When we have parties, we fill this middle island with food and drinks, and people normally just gather around this island. And it's just a fun space to like be able to have people over and have enough room to like have people in and out of the space and kitchen. So a luxury in this apartment is having a washer and dryer. Don't look at my dirty clothes. We love fabric. Again, this did have like a door on it, and we took it off and put on more fabric just to have texture and make it really easy. And there's not like a door coming out at you. It's just sliding this way. So yeah, I feel very thankful for that, to have it in our kitchen and be able to wash our clothes and not send them off to the laundry. Other really beautiful pieces in the space. We have this bowl that I just got from Mexico City, and everything in Mexico City was so beautiful, and all the ceramics really stood out to me. And I love this bowl. Fishes, how cute. We also have like a lot of just antique little moments that Hudson has found from Etsy or Facebook Marketplace or different markets. And again, like old wood feels really special to us. And then also ceramics feel really special. So I believe we got this in Nashville, I think. Every time we go on a trip, we love to bring back like little knickknacks and tchotchkes. It just feels like a space where if you need something, you can have it here. So we're trying to like take advantage of every space and countertop and really enjoy it. Whenever we have parties or have people over, we have a Polaroid camera, and we like our friends to just like take photos and enjoy it. And so what I need to do is get one of those books. But for now, they're just sitting in a bowl. And it's really fun to like come here and look through these pictures and remember the moments that we've had in this space, because again, it's really important to have like people here and to enjoy it and to celebrate life in this apartment. These are all the photos of that. Like I said before, color and texture is really important to me, especially whenever we are hosting or you're thinking about like a table and a lot of people sitting at the table with really colorful food or beverages. And so we have all of these like cups and plates and bowls and like serving bowls that just feel really fun to like put on the table, and you can put like herbs in this and then lemon slices, and then you have it by like a glass of orange wine, and it just feels a little bit more exciting for me, at least, having all of these like colors and textures, especially when I'm hosting or having a dinner. And then I get to close it and no one gets to see it until I open it up again. Something that's really fun about this apartment is the entryway between the kitchen and the dining room. This space is a space that like holds so many of our friends. We'll have game nights on the table, and then it's like, oh, we get to lounge on the couch as well. We spent so much time trying to find this couch because it had to be the perfect size, because we wanted both. We wanted a couch and a table. And this couch we found, it's vintage, it's horse and hog hair, which is super interesting to me. We've spilt a lot of wine on it, unfortunately, but we've just flipped all the covers. And it's like precious, but it's also approachable, which feels important for a space where a lot of people are coming in and out. This table is also vintage. A lot of our vintage pieces are from a Brooklyn antique company called Good Behavior. We got the table from them. We have this like storage unit from them, this lamp from them. They have a lot of really good pieces that we are like totally drawn to. And my favorite thing about this storage unit is like the glass. It's all curved. I think it's really beautiful and lovely, and it stores all the things that I can host with. I have these beautiful swans. They're like napkin weights. And my girlfriend got them for me for my 30th birthday. And I think that they are just actually perfect. I love them so much. And then all of our like silver and our ceramics. It's just a beautiful space to have a little storage. This gallery wall was something that my girlfriend, she works for an interior design company, and she was like, let's do a gallery wall, because we had all of these pieces that we didn't really know what to do with. And so many of these pieces on this wall are very important to Hudson and I. These pictures are literally just like big printouts from when we were in Tulsa. This is like an old Chinese restaurant that we used to go to. This print, it is something that's been in every single home that we've had, from Tulsa to Bushwick to Bed-Stuy. And it's not like the craziest print in the world. I didn't even know who did it, but it does feel, when you have those moments where it's like home is like these pieces, I feel like that's been like part of our home journey. And then we also bought this like print. It actually is a painting. We bought it from Union Square, like one of those artists in the Union Square market, our first year in New York. So it's about 6 years old, and we didn't know what to do with it for the longest time, and we just decided to get it framed. And it's fun because it's like from our first year in New York, and it's like a fun piece to just have as like a statement moment. But yeah, this wall is like precious. It has so many like pieces of art. This is a super old dog. I think it's like, I don't even know the year, I think 1930s or something. Like, it's so beautiful. And he's just like this funky little print sketched out. But yeah, I love this wall. So much art. This is my sweet, sweet, sweet Pomeranian, Milo. He is precious. And we got him from a farm in Oklahoma, got him off of Craigslist. And I think I will never have another dog outside of Pomeranians. They are sassy and perfect, and I love him. Hudson and I actually met in Syracuse, New York. I was visiting a friend's family, and he was doing a music tour. And we met at Applebee's after one of his shows. And little did I know that he would be my husband a few years later, but we went back to school and had a few classes together and started working in the same department, and slowly fell in love. And then we dated for 2 years and then got married pretty young. We've been married for 8 years now, and it's been such a sweet journey for us to like kind of grow up together. It feels like when you meet someone really young and then you build a life together, you get to learn so much about who that person is and who they're growing into being. And I feel very thankful for him. So throughout our space, you will find all of these like dried hydrangeas. I love them so much because of like the shape, and also how the stems are so long, and you can kind of, especially when they're dry, you can manipulate it any way. So this you could literally just put up top here and have it like coming out more of a moment like that, or coming out this side. These are called cone hydrangeas. They are available in the late summer, and they're the ones that dry really well. The ones that you'll find at a grocery store won't dry like this. So you have to find the cone hydrangeas, but they are so lovely and an easy little touch to a space that if you want like something that has texture and color, they're really special. There's also some that are other colors, like these. They're like pink versus the brown. They're so fun. I love them. They're all over my home. So this table is really lovely and beautiful. It is like a fold-out leaf table. I don't know where it's from or how old it is, but I do know it's quite old, and it's been such a fun place. Mini meals, mini games, lots of moments have been had at this table, which is really fun. I think one of the best things about hosting is knowing who's going to be in your space, knowing how they feel and what they feel like excited about. Hosting so much is creating an environment for people, so you want to be relaxed and comfortable and excited to have people in your environment when you welcome people into your home, you're welcoming them into your world. And so you do have control over that to a degree. And so making sure that they have enough food, making sure they have enough to drink, making sure that there's like something that's entertaining or conversation pieces that feel important where they can feel seen or walk away and feel excited to come back. But it's creating that environment that is so special and important, and it requires thought beforehand, but also it makes the party or the dinner so much more important whenever you've prepared and created that environment for people. My childhood was really magical. I grew up in Arkansas with parents who were artists, but also owned a 12-step program where they helped people through nature and through art. And my childhood was just surrounded by nature. We also didn't have a lot of money growing up, and so it felt important that like the resources of earth were beneficial to us. All of the furniture in my house was like handmade by my mom. All of our walls were murals. My childhood home literally had like the ceilings and the floors painted as like a jungle. And so growing up, I just felt very connected to nature. When I was in college, I decided that I wanted to study nonprofit management, and I kind of thought that's where my life was going to take me. And I started working at nonprofits, but on the weekends, I was an intern for a floral company in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I would work 14-hour days, and I would have more energy from those jobs than I would from my 9-to-5. And it just felt really special to be able to create things for people. And so I thought I would just do that on the side for a really long time. Moving to New York, I also thought that that was going to be the case. I moved here for a job, a nonprofit job, and then I started freelancing on the side, and then the pandemic happened. And we were able to kind of rethink what I wanted to do with my life. And I started getting orders, and people were interested in the company. And it just developed into this thing where now my husband and I run Flowers by Ford full time. He's also a musician, and we just have created this life that feels like something I couldn't have even dreamed of. And I feel so thankful for it, because now we can both like live in our art and do what we love and have a life that feels slow and also fulfilling and important. And it's been a journey of a lifetime, and I'm so thankful for it. New York is super interesting because there are so many people that want to throw so many parties. Coming from Arkansas and Oklahoma, I had an idea of like the type of celebrations that New York offers, but being here in the industry where you offer services for parties, it's really expanded my world. And there was like one account that really changed my life. My friend worked for a co-working space, and they needed weekly flowers. And it was enough money where I was able to quit my job. And so it was just that moment where I was like, there's something to this, and I can make it work if I hustle really hard, find the right clients and the right gigs. And that's how it all evolved. And then our online portfolio really started to take off, and now I'm with a management company that helps with branded campaigns and social media and content, and it's just continuing to follow what feels right and say yes to open doors, and also realize that like there's enough room for so many people. There's so many florists in New York, and I'm so thankful that I've built a community out of the floral industry, but also like it supported me and my family, and it supports so many other people. And also being able to hire freelancers and offer jobs, like it's such a fun journey. And it feels like it's just from those like little small yeses. So we're gonna go into my garden, and I'm going to clip just a few pieces of greenery, and I have a lilac bush. I'm gonna add some lilac. We're gonna use a vase that's in my apartment, and we're just gonna build an arrangement that will be fun to like keep in the center of my living room, so that when friends come over later, there'll be a beautiful like arrangement that they can just enjoy. So this is my like little haven. We have incredible direct light, which feels like a gift. This is like the garden area, our weeping willow and our cherry tree. This is where we have all of our parties, the long table, and this is where I have my morning coffee as much as I possibly can. We're just gonna pick a few random things to put together, and you can do this literally any point, anytime. The base is always like greenery. I think that that's an important starting point. And if you can, I would do things that have different heights so that when you're thinking about where you're putting this in the vase, like this is gonna go tall, this is gonna go low. So I'm gonna get a few other pieces that are a little low. I think some grass could be fun. Get in here. Yeah, that's feeling good. Maybe a few more greenery. Especially, I love coming out here whenever I can pick pieces that I know will continue to grow. So I'm like taking away from my garden right now, but it's only the beginning of spring. All of this is gonna come back so quickly. And so it feels nice that I can like trim things back and know that it's going to continue to grow and be even larger. Let's maybe get a few leaves as well. You know, shades of different colors make a huge difference. So when you're in the garden, even like with this in my hand, there are so many different shades of green. You have this like really vibrant lime green, and then you have these like darker shades. And then you have some greenery that has like this really light, almost like white. And I love balancing and like mixing all of those in, and then always throwing in these like darker shades of like burgundy or brown. I do that a lot with my arrangements. I'll have like a very pastel shade of like pink and yellow and orange, and then I'll do like one chocolate Cosmo that's like this burgundy pop. I think the contrast of that is just so fun. One gardening tip I would say, obviously water it as much as you possibly can, pull all the weeds, but also just have fun. I have messed up and killed so many plants. And I've also planted some of these like grasses 2-3 years ago, and they're still coming back. And so I think just like trusting nature and knowing that the plants will grow, and if they don't, it's okay. You'll learn and you'll figure out something else. But planting perennials has saved my life because I'm not spending hundreds of dollars every spring to replant a whole garden. All of this is growing back from like 2 years ago, which is really fun. I just purchased this lilac bush, and this part of my garden, a lot of stuff doesn't grow, and I don't know why. Also, I should be like pulling all these weeds, and I'll be doing that later today. But this part of my garden, a lot of stuff doesn't grow, and so I was like, I'm just going to plant things in pots and see if that changes it. I think there's something in the soil back here that just isn't working. It also gets more shade than the rest of the garden. So I think that that's also something that happens. But this lilac bush, I'm obsessed with her. And so we're gonna use a few of that. She's just now starting to bloom, which is really fun. And another favorite piece about this garden, which I'm not even responsible for, is this rose bush. It's from my neighbor. Their garden, they don't like keep up with it as much as they used to, but I know that someone loved it really well at one point because there's all these roses that are like falling over, and I think it's really special. They'll bloom and they'll be like this pop of red, similar to the painting in my bedroom. It feels like a little moment for me. This back table, to be honest, I don't know what it is. It was here when we moved in. I'm assuming it was some type of like outdoor cooking area because of this like concrete base, and it has this like pit back here and a lot of metal. So I'm curious if like it was something for cooking, or maybe it was just hosting at some point. What I use it for are my herbs. These are all like planted herbs, potted herbs, and like a rose bush. And then this will be like the back table where people come and get their drinks. So normally when we have parties, this is like the drink station. So it pulls people from the kitchen all the way out, which I found with hosting, if you break things up and you kind of lead people into spaces, it feels like there's more room to breathe and there's like more moments. So this is our drink station moment and my herb moment, which I think I'm gonna get a few of these green ferns for our arrangement. And this arrangement's gonna be super simple because again, I'm just getting it from my garden. If you're going to the market or you're going to the grocery store, you can get just like a few bundles of different varieties to make it feel like you're mixing textures and colors all together. A few tips is like cutting all of your stems at an angle so that whenever you put it in the water, they'll be able to drink a little bit more water. I'll show you when I'm building the arrangement, but you want all of the leaves to come off where it's gonna like hit the water line. But if you're just like cutting from outside in the nature, just get products that come at like, that just catch your eye. Like this is such a beautiful moment where it'll fall over the vase, and then these are like moments that will come really high up. And it can be all greenery or it can also be with flowers. It just depends on kind of what you have and what you want to pull into your space. All right, that feels good. Shall we go inside and build our arrangement? Let's do it. So once you have all of your cut greenery, flowers, whatever it is, your next step in building arrangement is going to be processing your flowers. So you have this stem and you see how we have all of these leaves on the stem. You're gonna wanna take those off, and it can be super simple, literally just like taking it off with your hand, because anything below the water line that has a leaf in it, it's going to create bacteria where your flowers are going to die faster. So you're just gonna take that off, and then you're gonna trim everything at an angle like this. If you have like a woody stem or like hardy stem like this, you can also cut it in half. So you're just splitting it to give this a moment to have a little bit more water. So you're just gonna do that with all of your greenery, and then you can start putting them in there, or you can put them to the side once it's processed if you want to just like have these available for you to build things. It kind of depends on what you want to do. I'm probably going to process it and then put it in the vase as I process my flowers. Whenever I'm building my arrangements, I really like the lip of the vase to be somewhat covered, but I don't want my arrangement to be super tight. So I'm going to cut my flowers to have a little bit longer of a stem where it can like come out, but it is resting on the lip of the vase so that it has this like moment where it's covering it, but it's still coming out. Normally, when you have a vase like this, you want to build an arrangement that's almost like double the size of the vase, because you want the spacing of everything to not feel so claustrophobic, but you also want it to feel grand if you have this much of like product, because you'll see that it'll quickly fill up, especially with all of our branches. And it's fun to just like start low and then go high. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna build my base. Then you get to add in all of the other fun little stuff. But the base is important. Anytime you're building an arrangement at home, it could be for a holiday, or it could be just for yourself or for a dinner party. The main thing is you just wanna have fun. And if you like something, put it in. And whenever you're building it, one thing that I really enjoy is like creating shapes. And so you can see like this is coming up a little bit higher, and then it's slowly going down. And whenever I put the ferns in, they're gonna like trail and cascade out of the arrangement. So it feels like you're creating this like art piece and this shape that feels interesting versus just like a big ball of flowers. But again, if that's what you like, go for it. I just think that it's fun to have a little bit of shape and texture whenever you're building the arrangement. Then you have a piece like this, where if you're just putting it like standing up like this, it naturally is coming this way. My arrangement is already going up this way, so I'm gonna put it in the middle where it can also follow this way. So then I have these really tall moments, and then she's like falling down, which is always nice for me and my arrangements. I look back on some of my arrangements that I made when I was like just starting out, and some I really like, some I really don't. And I think the number one thing with design is like to keep going and find out what you like. In the beginning, you're going with what's natural, but also you could be like trying to replicate an arrangement that you've seen online, or you're following a YouTube video or an Instagram reel where you're trying to like copy something that someone's teaching you. And one of my biggest pieces of advice is like, keep going, figure out what like feels good for you. We all like so many different things. And for me, the biggest thing is like texture, color, and shape. For you, it could be like the actual product. You could love tulips, and like every arrangement you make, you want a tulip in there. And so just go with what you like. It's important to like enjoy the art that you're creating, because that comes through in the arrangement. And it makes it feel exciting for you, which is the main thing. You want to just have a good time. I think the main thing that probably separates like a hobby from a career is just like learning. I think it's learning which flowers last in a certain season. If you have an event and it's really hot in the summer and you are about to deliver a bridal bouquet, and you know that that bridal bouquet is going to be out of the water for several hours, and the bride's going to be like tossing it around and hugging people, and it's like, it can't be super delicate. So just knowing like information and learning which flowers need like hot water, which flowers need cold water. And so literally it's just a point of like learning and like time. Time is on our side with any hobby, with any skill set. And I think it's just like leaning into that. I only have the information that I do because of people that have like taught me, and like I've been open to learning from different florists who have a lot more experience than I do. It's always like a learning game. So now that I've built like my greenery base, I started adding in some of this like tall grass that like falls forward. And I'm also adding these like really special color moments in the front of the arrangement. So we have our lilac, and we have this like really beautiful green, like almost like a lime green. And then it has this like touch of red on the tip. And so I want those to be very like forward focused. So those are going right in the front. And I'm thinking that all of these ferns are also going to be in the front, just kind of coming down, cascading, to let these really shine and have their moment as well. And then a final piece is this like dark burgundy moment, which, I mean, the arrangement is very green forward. And I think like having just these pops of dark, especially in the front, I think is going to like really, to me, add this moment that like feels just special. We do a lot of weddings. We work with a lot of like set design. We do photo shoots, branded dinners. We have like been asked to do some very interesting installations. I think one of them that was challenging but so fun was a week-long installation turning a living room into a garden. And we used all of the furniture that people had, but also like filled flowers all around it and created a meadow. It was so much fun. It was for a shoe campaign. And it was very early in my career as well. So I felt very stressed to like make it perfect. And it wasn't perfect, but it was so beautiful. And I think that that was like a great lesson for me. I overbought so much. I think it was also whenever we were still in our Bushwick apartment, which was our first floral studio. And I purchased maybe 50 like grass plants to be delivered to our studio home. And we couldn't fit them in our apartment. So they just filled the sidewalk in the middle of Bushwick, all of these plants. And I was having my team like wrap the bottom of the plant in chicken wire, because that's like our base for installations. And it's such a funny thing looking back. Like I remember those photos and I'm just like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I also was having so much fun and I was like figuring it out. And it's a very fond memory to think about those early installations that people really took a chance on me and trusted me to like make something interesting, when it was trial and error for me as well. And I think our home arrangement is done. I like her. Love my home because it feels like a safe place. It feels like I can go out into the city build all these arrangements, work with these clients, sometimes have really good days, sometimes have really bad days. And I can come home to this very peaceful, safe place that feels like mine. It's a rental, but it feels like I've created so much ownership within it. And it feels like a place that I can have people over and we can all just rest and be at peace and celebrate. We've had so many parties in this space where people can just come and hang, and some core values for me is having a peaceful space, having a space where people can enjoy themselves and celebrate, where I can host and have these celebrations of life that doesn't even have to have a huge moment. It's just simple moments. And this space has created that for me and my family. And it's also been really special to have the garden, and that's been a new skill that I'm trying to build. And all my perennials are coming back up right now, and I just didn't even know that I could do that, and I'm so excited that I can. And then we also have a music studio in this space for my husband, and over the last 2 years he's been able to release his own music, and it's all been produced and written in this home. So we're gonna look back on this space in 50 years and just be so thankful for this little haven in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, where we were able to create and build a life that feels really special. Okay, Homeworthy, it's been so much fun. I'm so happy that you were in my space. I have to go get back to work. Thank you for being here. I'll see you at the market. Bye.
Today we're in London, stepping inside the ultimate urban sanctuary of celebrity florist and event designer Larry Walshe. While Larry's world is filled with vibrant color and spectacular florals, his home is intentionally the opposite, a calm, neutral retreat designed to let the eyes rest. As Larry affectionately explains, the palette was even subconsciously inspired by his dog, shaping a space that feels soft, grounding, and deeply soothing. It's a place to pause, reset, and breathe after a day spent creating visual drama on a grand scale. With life and work spanning New York City, Lake Como, and London, Larry is a true jet setter, and this home is his anchor. So come with us as we explore this serene, beautifully considered space where quiet luxury and intention take center stage. To watch Larry's home tour ad-free, scan the QR code on screen or visit homeworthyplus.com for access to all of our latest episodes ad-free and to receive other exclusive membership perks.
Hey Homeworthy, welcome to my house in London. Come on in.
I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and on this channel we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
To watch Homeworthy ad-free, visit homeworthyplus.com or scan the QR code on screen. Homeworthy Plus provides an ad-free viewing experience and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below.
Hi, my name's Larry Walshe. I'm a celebrity florist and event designer, and welcome to my home in London, England. So my home here, actually, when I first discovered it, it was totally an accident. I became one of those people that thought, I'm going to go and look at property on a Sunday afternoon. I was like, that'll be fun. That'll be a really nice, fun activity. And I did. I found these really unusual kind of warehouse spaces and thought, I'm just literally going to pop around. I've got no intention of buying anything. But in the back of my mind, I needed to make a change. I needed to make a change for where I was about 4 years ago, because the scope of the business that I've been running was really, really changing. It was expanding rapidly and going into multiple global markets, and there was a lot that was being demanded of me. And in the home I was in at that time, I felt very, very overlooked. I was on a terraced house in London, as we kind of all know what they're like. There's a lack of privacy in those spaces, and having more demands put on me professionally, I was seeking a sense of refuge, a sense of safety, and I really needed to be somewhere that I could kind of walk in, lock the door, and really feel like I was in my own little world, my own little bubble, my own little haven. And I happened to walk into this space, which was a large, open artist studio. It has the industrial warehouse nature of the raw brick, which is all exposed and really beautiful. But it had been lived in by an artist who literally had just giant canvases around the wall, a bed in the corner, and they were living that beautiful lifestyle that you would kind of dream up. And I suddenly just felt so enclosed and enveloped as I walked in here, closed the door, because partly I realized that there really wasn't very much daylight that I could see from around the walls. Ultimately, I decided to create something that had everything thrown into the ceiling. So what you'll see is that I actually had the roof element cut out so that we created a stolen light box, which then floods the entire communal space with daylight. So it feels incredibly open, but in that, it also is incredibly private. Everything is coming from above. So I can come home, I can close the door after running around looking after any of my clients, and I can feel a sense of home. Welcome to my open plan living space. It was really important for me to actually have an environment that was super social. The last property that I lived in was a townhouse where everything was stacked on top of each other. So actually it made entertaining really tricky. So in this space, everything is just one big open room. We've divided up and started to zone out the areas. So like here, in terms of dining, we've got a really beautiful reclaimed oak dining table, which actually came from an old school in Romania, as did the two lights that we've got hanging in this space. And a lot of what I've found has been discovered on travels that I've done in the last few years around Europe. We've then got a French ceramicist who has handmade all of these really beautiful candlesticks and candle accessories, and really everything kind of coming into here is as handmade or as artisanal as possible, because I'm really kind of celebrating the beauty in the perfection in imperfection. And I think that that's the design space that we're kind of moving into for the next few years. I think that that's that kind of next moving trend where, especially the more that we see things like AI coming to the forefront of our conversations professionally, personally, there's, I think, a really wonderful celebration in the fact that this has been handmade. It is going to be imperfect because somebody made it by hand just for you. It's a one-off, it's an original. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. So equally, the pots I've got dotted around the space have all come from India. All of the chairs in here are handmade in France. And this rug was actually from Soho Home Collection. And I remember I fell in love with this in New York. I saw it into a showroom and I remember asking and they were like, no, we don't make it anymore. And I was like, please, you have to make me one. So this actually took 9 months to come. I've waited for it very, very patiently. But when it arrived, I was just so thrilled because it really warms up this space. It kind of helps to zone out and divide this up into a nice area. And then, of course, under here, you've got the polished concrete floor, which gives that really lovely kind of industrial feel. Warmth-wise, I really worked decor-wise with the raw brickwork that was here. That was my starting palette. And the biggest fight that I actually had in the whole space was in doing the dividing walls that created some of the further rooms, because I wanted to work with the Venetian plaster, and trying to find a tone that worked was my biggest challenge. In fact, I did it 4 times because every single time the paint color wasn't quite right. And I think the guy was absolutely ready to murder me, or he was just thrilled that I was paying him 4 times the amount that it should have cost to do it in the first place. But ultimately I took the color tone from the grout that was with the stonework and then just kind of elevated that a little bit. So tonally it was perfect, but it really warmed up and made that space feel elegant and refined. And then as we start to kind of motion through, we've of course got dog beds, which couldn't be more perfect. And these are actually from Charlie Chow, and I can't love them anymore because they've got these little parcels underneath them so that dogs can burrow inside and take a nap. Hi. And then probably one of my favorite pieces in this whole apartment is actually the photograph that sits above them, which is this beautiful line from David Yarrow, which I just love the kind of like masculine energy that brings to the space with all of the softening that we're doing with the soft textiles and the other textures coming in here. That just adds a really lovely pop and starts to align the black that's featuring in all of the beams overhead and in all of the cabinetry that then sits in the kitchen space. So the whole thing is now starting to communicate and talk to one another as we work around each zone. Equally with that, in this space, we've got what is architecturally our most interesting and most challenging piece, and that was the light box. And we did this for two reasons. One, to create a form of outside space, because otherwise this apartment doesn't have any. And I think one of the biggest things that we came from lockdown was that need to be able to see the outside world and get to the outside world, especially for those of us that lived in London and were so used to actually dotting in and out, constantly traveling, and then suddenly to find yourselves trapped, you were kind of like, I need to get out. So we have that little stolen moment up here, which is essentially like a balcony, inside, outside. But also what that did, cutting away the roof of this building, meant that we were using a void space and actually creating purpose in a space that otherwise would have been totally underutilized. But it now floods this entire zone with natural daylight. So that and the Veluxes that we've got in the ceiling, between the two of those, you've got so much natural daylight coming into the apartment, but actually such a wonderful sense of privacy because none of it, or next to none of it, is actually on the walls. So you can come into this space, lock the door, nobody can see you, nobody's overlooking you. I can look up and watch the planes flying overhead. But apart from that, I'm totally in my own little space. So moving into the kitchen space, this bit we kept really, really industrial. We've got stainless steel kitchen through and through, chef's kitchen style, because I love to cook and I love to have people over. And one of my favorite things to do when I am actually here and I've got any sense of time here is to just have friends round, sit at the dining table and really take that moment to connect back with people again. For me, I spend so much of my life traveling. I think last year I clocked up 84 flights. So when I do have that moment to spend a few days at home, suddenly it's family feast around the table, especially on a Sunday. It's good old northern Sunday roast. So this is the big boy for that space. And we've got the island and everything that comes around here. And it kind of plays with this like industrial juxtaposition to the softening that we've done everywhere else. So where we've then kind of tried to feminize and really kind of create something that feels super homely, here we've also kind of used these same textures to just be a little bit sharper, a little bit slicker. And then equally, little bits and pieces that constantly float around on the island are all playing then with natural materials. It's either handmade ceramics, it's beautiful wood and glass moments, and then there's usually food and other bits and pieces kind of like scattered around here. So it's a nice, very sociable space to be. I can see everybody no matter whether we're in the living area or we're dining, and so it's a natural, entertaining home. Equally, loads of people always ask, they're like, what flowers do you have in your home? And I was like, dependent on the time of year, totally varies. It depends on what project I've been working on. But honestly, a lot of what I curate in this space for partly the clarity and the cleanliness that it really brings to me mentally is actually green plants. Then a few sculptural stems knocking around of something. I love flowers which are interesting, which are unique, which are hard to find. So there'll always be like little things like terrariums or this little planted moment going on over here. And I'll just change it as we go throughout the season so that way it constantly feels refreshed, but at the same time, it feels super elevated and super effortless. So So then as we move into the living space, here we really divided up and defined the space by actually creating a really big L-shaped, comfy sofa that's, again, it's encouraging you to want to lounge. It's something that on a Sunday afternoon you want to jump in, surround yourself with pillows, watch a movie. And for me, it's really important that when I have that time, I can actually be in a space that allows me to relax. Finding the rug for this space was an absolute nightmare. This is one of 5 that I've bought, and apparently this is where I have a real issue in life. I buy too many rugs, and now they're all sat in a storage container waiting for the next home, so I've got somewhere else to put them because I hate to admit that I made a mistake. But this one actually, I felt worked incredibly well just because it's a jute woven rug. It's super easy, it's super low maintenance, but tonally it just worked with everything else without taking over or feeling actually too elevated. The one that I had before was like a silk blend and it had a bit of a sheen to it. It just felt too fancy for the space, whereas I really just needed something which was earthy enough that it kind of worked with the rest of the tones. Here we've then got textured bouquet as the upholstery for this custom piece, and then we've paired that again with Soho Home Collection cushions. And I just love everything that they create because they're always so fun. You've got tassels, fringes, everything else, but the prints go so well together. Tonally, they're really kind of symbiotic with one another, and I think they just make it so effortless. And I really always like the different collections that they bring forward because they find a way to explore tones and colours in a really nice, homely way that doesn't feel too fancy, too fussy. And then, of course, we've got our lazy dog over here, who always features. You'll find her usually amongst the pillows. She likes to throw them everywhere, so I don't know why I bother making them up every day. And apparently this is what I used as my inspiration to design this home. So as I'm talking through this and suggesting that these were my ideas and everything else, I looked at the end of this and realised that actually I just designed a scheme that looked like my beagle. I've got whites, I've got creams, I've got gingers, I've got all the things in here, and apparently now it's just tonally perfect so that she can lounge all over it and I'll never be able to see the dog hairs. So that's where we're at with that one. But again, we've paralleled the space in here because we had such a kind of chunky piece of photography on one side. We've paralleled it with another piece from David Yarrow here. That actually, to me, it's just one of the most beautiful photographs I've ever seen. It almost looks like a painting, but you've got this polar bear shaking itself with water, and it's literally kind of like diamonds in the sky. But that strength of the monochromatic impact sits really, really well against these neutral tones to, again, play with the scale of the building that we're in here and the space that we're in. Feel like it's not fussy, it's not too busy, but it is creating a strength that has that kind of masculinity, and it's kind of really rooting it in something that feels defined. And then in this space, we've actually got underfloor heating and things which are tucked into the polished concrete. It's all very, very seamless. So as then you look around the walls, we don't have radiators, we don't have anything in this space getting in the way of the sense of design. We've just then got the raw brickwork, we've got that industrial quality coming through, and we've got a space within that that's sat under all of this daylight and just feels super, super scrummy. I started it when I first got them, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be super well behaved. Unlike other people, there's gonna be no dogs on beds, there's gonna be no dogs on sofas. And for like the first 3 days, I laid with her like on the floor in front of my sofa. And I was like, this is really uncomfortable. So I was like, oh, do you know what? You're so sweet. Let's just scoop you up and don't worry, it's gonna be totally fine. Nobody's gonna notice. And I was like, you're never gonna get too involved in this. Don't worry about it. And then the next thing I'm like, oh, it's 10 p.m. I can't put you down. You're so adorable. You fit in my hand. Let me take you to bed. It'll be okay. We'll just snuggle here. And 12 years later, I've literally created a monster. So one of actually my favorite pieces in this space is this petrified wood table. It's a totally fossilized piece, which as a single unit, it's very, very heavy. But I just love the kind of, I love the gloss texture of this. I love the coloration that again pulls on this beamwork in the black references that keep coming into the space, and just how well that merges against these other kind of neutral textures. I then actually found a very, very similar piece in this side table that had this beautiful kind of like mocha grey that was the same. And the irony was I was in the shop and I was like, oh, this is wonderful. And I went to pick it up and it literally weighs more than a human being, despite the fact it looks tiny. So I was like, he was like, you might want to be careful with that. I was like, don't worry, I've got it. And then nearly put my back out trying to put it into the back of the car. But that really then mixed with, again, like another beautiful side table that I found, which is totally vintage and reclaimed. And I just thought it was lovely. It's got that kind of like gnarly wood texture. Again, it's celebrating the perfection of imperfection. It's not perfect, it's not mass produced. It's a one-off piece that's just been modified into a table, but I feel like it really sits nicely in that quality of industrial warehouse chic that we're kind of playing with in this space. And then equally like little things like the marble canister that's on there. It's like every single time I find things that, like as I'm traveling around, or I'll pull something and I'm lucky because I work in events that I find things for clients and then we'll borrow them in my home when that wedding is finished or that project is over, and then something else will come in, and in turn I've constantly got a bit of a cycle of like vases, accessories, knickknacks. But it's just those bits that really I think feel like as you collect them, they're your mementos, they're your memories. And even coming into this space, which I try and keep quite clean deliberately, because I need to kind of be in a space that doesn't overstimulate me. When I spend so long working on projects for other people, other clients, and I spend so much of the day interacting with other people, actually what I need to come into is to kind of close the door, have an area where my mind can switch off, and I needed to actually create a sense of calm in that environment so that my brain could relax. And that kind of cleanliness that I maintain in here really helps me to do that, so that I can create a sense of order. And then I step back into the chaos that is my professional life, where I'm constantly on the go and I've constantly got various different projects being bounced around at any one given moment. This kind of allows me just that moment to regather myself, refocus, and then come back to work ready to play in that space. Baby Larry, growing up in the Lake District in the northwest of England, did not think that he was going to be a florist, despite the fact that my dad constantly thought I was going to do something in that world, because he was determined to teach me all about plants, horticulture, art, anything in that kind of world. And I literally remember him turning around and saying, one day, this entire library of beautiful botanical books, they'll all be yours. And I was like, can I have something else? But originally, when I had grown up in the Lake District, I actually moved down to London when I was 17. I intended on coming down for 6 weeks, and I decided that I was going to be a performer. I wanted to be in the West End. So I took dance classes, having never danced a day in my life. I did 6 dance classes a day, 6 days a week for 6 weeks. And at the end of it, I actually got myself a full scholarship into one of Europe's best dance schools. I then proceeded to go into performing. I went into musical theatre, I went onto the stage, but I had an accident, which meant that I had to kind of reevaluate what those life choices and career path was going to look like. And ultimately, I bumbled around in a number of different job roles. I call it Goldilocks-ing. I was trying to kind of pick what career path number 2 was going to look like, and that really wasn't as easy as finding career path number 1. I was really good at what I was doing before, but trying to find what I actually wanted to do early to mid-20s, I was a bit like, So I danced around and I worked in a shop, I did retail, I did this, I worked as an estate agent. And then I ended up working for a friend of a friend who ran a catering company. And I had absolutely no clue that there was even an events industry, let alone the scale and breadth of what was there. But I found myself in this space where I was working on projects, I had a creative opinion, I already had a creative background, a creative eye. So in that space, I found myself getting quite frustrated with what I saw clients receiving in terms of a design service in terms of the amount of money that was being asked for these projects and these kind of pivotal occasions. And I just felt that there had to be a better way of doing that. And in that frustration, I remember sitting there and I was doing a particular event. I was organising something on 3 days' notice for 2 people to go and have dinner in a very iconic venue in London that can happily seat over about 600. And the brief was make it intimate. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. So here I am kind of like doodling what I want everything to look like. I'm sending it out and sending it to different vendors and saying, okay, this is what I would like, this is what I need. And in return, I'm getting some rather large numbers on pieces of paper coming back to me, but absolutely no kind of process, nothing being offered in the way of design and idea. And in that moment, I just had a bit of a revelation that I was like, this is literally like 7 times my salary being transacted. If only I could work out how to put A and B together, maybe I could just do it myself. Like, if I think that there's a better way of doing it, why not just go put my money where my mouth is and give it a go? So I literally took annual leave. I took a 2-week holiday. I went and did a 2-week flower course in Knightsbridge in London. I came back, I handed my notice in, I pushed my piece of paper across the desk and I sat at my dining room table in this tiny little chocolate box cottage in southwest London with £500 in my back pocket and went, this is what I do now. And that was 11 years ago. And now I work in a space where I'm actually the only event designer in the world to work out of multiple locations globally. We have studios in London, Lake Como, Italy, Cannes in the south of France, and also Manhattan in New York City. And I now am very, very privileged that I travel between all of those major locations, creating some of the most talked about and discussion-worthy celebrations on the planet. So, not a room in itself, but very much one of my favourite parts of this apartment is what I affectionately call the runway. This is a metal formed structure, very uncomfortable to walk on, but looks amazing. Brings a kind of masculine energy into the space with the steel. But this leads us to the stolen light space that we talked about, which is where, as you can see from the shape of the brickwork here, is where actually we cut away the roof, brought these giant glass panels in, floor and walls, so that we've now got a space that we can fully walk outside on. It's my little balcony of sorts, but it brings all of that light into this space and creates a really unique architectural moment that really kind of brings this apartment to life and also totally utilises all of the available space. There's nothing wasted about what's in this apartment. You've got the double height quality of this living room, but you've also got this second floor at the same time. You haven't enclosed anything in, you're not feeling like anything's too low or too encompassing. And at the same time, you've now flooded this space in a way that it really feels like you've got the sense of openness. And then from there, we brought back to life the beams that were already naturally in this space. We restained those so that, again, we're working with the same colour tones and textures as we've done so with the interiors. And that lovely kind of sense of reclaimed wood versus the stark metalwork, I think, gives a really, really nice juxtaposition. So then, other main purpose of the runway is to lead us up into what is the primary. So here we've got a sense of being tucked in the attic. We're really, really cozy, especially when it's raining like it is now. All you hear is the raindrops hitting the Veluxes. You feel like you're tucked out of the way. It's totally private and enclosed. And what I did in this space, actually, just to make it feel super cozy, was just pop loads of different pieces of artwork eclectically along the walls. It's the only space in the house where I indulged my love for pattern. And it's the only space where I've allowed that kind of maximalism print on print to come into it. I thought there has to be a place where I'm given that little moment to kind of express that. It's very much a part of me that I love. but at the same time I wanted to make sure that there was still a neutrality, a sense of calm created throughout. So really kind of isolated it into this space. And then what we did is we took custom House of Hackney velvets along with the same House of Hackney carpets, so that you're blending two different prints and patterns. We've actually got a window that sits just beyond here, this circular window at the back that gets right in the way of what would be the headboard. So I actually made an insert just to go in there, so it allows you to black out the room entirely. But that in itself just creates a really nice kind of visual that starts to kind of like soften the lines of everything. And then from there, I've paired that with Soho Home Collection side tables, which have got a beautiful marble top. They're all hand carved in wood, but the circular nature of those also helps to soften the space. I started with something that I had owned and loved for a really long time, but actually it didn't feel right. It was rectangular, it felt too blocky, it felt too cumbersome. And so actually this has literally been a case of kind of gathering little bits and pieces. I've kept it super, super simple. You've just got a few really nice textiles thrown over. But again, unapologetically in this space, if I want a print in here, I'm having one. If I want a bit of colour coming into a piece of art, I'm having one. I'm just kind of balancing it on all sides. And then we've equally got this tiny little blanket box, which, small as it is, it's like one of my little favourite things. This hides all the like bits and pieces for the TV that's on the wall that then pulls out that I can watch if I just want to relax. And I just found this in some little charity shop in West London, but absolutely love mixing the kind of old with the new. I re-upcycled Jonathan Adler swivel chairs that I owned in a former life, which I absolutely adored. I couldn't bear to part with them, but they just weren't right. They were in like a champagne velvet. They didn't fit in this home. And I thought, well, actually, let's just use a House of Hackney velvet again. Let's find a different print, but something that symbiotically speaks from the rug, from the headboard to the chair, so that there's a sense of eclecticism that feels effortless. But at the same time, it feels really smart, it feels really cozy, and it feels really approachable. Main thing in this room that we need to be careful of is it's not great for tall people unless you want to stay right in the middle. But I love, again, the fact that these beams kind of came into this room, coming through the floor. We made sure to maintain these so that you've got that kind of sense of coziness. And then in and amongst that, along the walls, on all of the sides, I've popped just different pieces of art that I've collected. And what I actually really enjoy about this is there's such a juxtaposition between slightly more formal artwork that's here and just pieces which are sentimental to me that I've gathered and collected. And it was actually really nice to get those out, pop everything kind of on the wall so that I can see it every single day and really enjoy it. And we've got everything from beautiful David Hockney photographs over to a portrait of each of my dogs, which is done by Carter Costera, a really beautiful artist in New York. And that's just silly, it's personal, but I love it. I've also got a piece which was created by my dad, actually. So it's one of my lasting mementos of him because he passed away in 2019. But he was born in 1920 and he actually etched this painting after the bombing, and it's St Paul's Cathedral still existing with all of the rubble and ruins around it. And it was etched into on a copper plate, which then later was printed out. And so now you can see there's this really amazing kind of like tactile quality to it because you've got all of that smudging that comes through, and it really kind of, it reminds me of that time. It makes me kind of feel like this is something worth remembering. And again, it's a nice reference to where we are being in London, and it's that lovely kind of memento. Like from about 10 years old, I was being taught to have a critical eye. I'd be brought into a studio, which was a room in the house that I was absolutely banned from going into. And I would be brought into this space. There would be a painting on an easel and he was like, give me your opinion. And I was like, it's the most intimidating thing to be asked to come into a room you're otherwise banned from going into. That actually fundamentally has been such a massive part of my career, because as much as I started with floristry, I maintained a principle that I only ever sold or produced something that I could do myself. And that didn't necessarily mean that I did everything, because if I were doing a wedding, one person can't produce that in 24 hours and flowers are fresh. But it did mean that I had to be in a position that if, for example, somebody didn't come to work that day, I would actually be able to fulfill it, because I couldn't put myself in a position of risk where I took on something that I couldn't, if necessary, ultimately follow through on. And now that's kind of evolved more into a space where I see myself as more a curator and an art director, as well as a designer, looking at everything visual about somebody's celebration, moreover than just one particular facet. And I really liken that critical eye to being the success of that, because otherwise what really separates me from anybody else? It's my approach, it's my design style, it's my personality. But my skill set is curating and matchmaking a group of artisans around the world and pulling on different providers that I've cultivated over the last 5, 6, 7 years. I spend a lot of time going around, especially like Italy and France, to people that might make like trim or fringe that will go around a dining table or go around cushions, or a painter that will paint the most beautiful plates for you in like the south of Italy in Puglia. And I'll literally start matchmaking for a client these various different artisans and pulling them together so that you've got a group of talent that couldn't otherwise have ever come together on its own, but will also never come together for anybody else. In that moment, it's curated just for you. It's totally unique, it's totally special. And I think that it's that critical eye that allows me to cherry pick that little moment over here, that little piece over there, and pull those things into a space that makes sense, that has ultimately led to why we've developed and grown the way that we have. I only point this one out because it's really interesting that I picked it up at an art fair. I wasn't an artist of any kind of particular name or anything. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just totally taken by the simplicity of what's there, but it's actually called 100,000 to 1. And in the piece, you've got one raw diamond, and then the rest of it is all beads, individually popped on by hand into this eclipse. And what they do is, there was 10 of them made, they give you the coordinates on the back of the actual piece of art, showing you precisely where that diamond is located in that piece. And I just think there's something so lovely about knowing that there's something so special hidden in amongst all of the rest of that simplicity, that it's actually one of my favourite pieces. I love it. I don't know that I would ever celebrate first of all, I couldn't celebrate in the way that my clients do because I am not my client. But I think in real terms, if I were doing a celebration, it would be something that's like very curated, very intimate. I would do something kind of multi-day somewhere in a destination abroad where I can really then take all of my friends and spend quality time together in one space. I think those, for me, when I'm working on them, are always some of the funnest to do, because you get to really invest in the look and feel of the entire celebration, and you get to really kind of invest in that client. And from those I've seen, I think those are the ones that create the most meaningful memories. So that for me would kind of be how I would tackle it. This home was actually, it showcases me in, I think, a different space to creatively, where I've taken myself both professionally and personally. The home that I lived in previous to this was my first purchased home and was very much a state of excitement. Every idea I wanted to put into it, every wall I could knock down, every colour I could throw into it, every print I could put there, I did. I explored that and I really celebrated it. Coming into this, not only did I need somewhere that emotionally at that time would provide a sense of safety, of refuge, of comfort, but equally I was starting to develop my professional style from what is maybe known to be a little bit more opulent and maximal to still being very generous, very comfortable, luxurious by nature, overstuffed, like well thought through. But equally I was trying to take myself into a space of really refining what that sensibility was. And this home is somewhat a representation of that. It became like my pet project, but it was also one of my bigger challenges to express myself creatively using textures of neutral, because I never normally work in that space. I work with bags of colour. I work with maximalist print on print on print. So for me to actually pare that back and come into a world where I'm layering neutrals was actually really hard for me to do. But at the same time, incredibly satisfying, because actually out of the other side of that, I've really seen that in my professional work, I've now been able to create a look and feel which is a little more clean, a little more elevated for where I think we're just at in terms of design right now. And I've still managed to keep the very essence of what I love in there, which is an array of different textures, beautiful fringing, lovely jute matting, beautiful petrified wood, Venetian plaster, like all of the techniques and the kind of artisanal crafts that, again, that I look to support in my professional life. I found a way to bring that in by really searching in parts of Italy, France, Spain, to find artisans that weave really wonderful fabrics or make really unusual, unique pieces of furniture. And all of that has now been gathered. So a lot of what's here has a story, and it's been my story for the last 3-4 years. As I've traveled, I've started gathering those things so that ultimately it's now really a very strong representation of my experiences and what I've been living through. So this hallway is a little bit of a transient space. It leads us through into bathrooms and guest bedroom accommodation. But it was another opportunity where I've started kind of gathering bits and pieces. Like I love to apply that sense of maximalism. I love to hoard bits and pieces if I'm allowed. And I've totally had to try and control myself in doing that. So here I've allowed myself to put different pieces of art and curate some of the more colourful elements. And again, it's 2 pieces that my dad had painted, which I absolutely adore. And it were the only pieces that he ever created which were abstract. He was known for oils and landscapes and realism. But when teaching, he actually did these as a study to prove a point to a student who said that something that they were drawing, which didn't look correct, was abstract. And he was like, no, abstract actually has a point to it. And there's a mathematical concept behind it and a notion behind it. And so these 2 particular pieces, depending on which of the 2 you actually prefer, dictate which your personality type is. The top is introvert, the bottom is extrovert. And so they're mathematically generated to be able to determine what your personality trait is dependent on your preference. And I always, as a kid, I loved them. I remember them sitting at the bottom of the stairs wrapped up in a blanket. And I said when I first moved out of home at 17, I was like, can I have those? And he was like, well, I was just going to burn them. So yeah, you can do what you want. And I was like, nope, not burning them. And so they've now actually, they're the one thing that since I was 17 years old, they've gone to every single home I've lived in, no matter where in the world that's been. And they've always come with me, so I always find a place for them. This piece behind has been the bane of my life when I've tried to move it. I've had it in 2 homes now, and it's not light. But it is a piece of, again, petrified wood. It's taken from a giant tree root, and it's one solid piece that then I popped a glass top on. And it's another really good example of the type of work that I like, because it's got that natural organic quality to it. But again, it's a unique piece. You can't make it again. It's not manufactured. So there's just something that I love about the kind of softness that brings to this kind of like otherwise harsher, more barren space. And it really kind of helps to just warm that whole environment up. And again, it was another good place for me to kind of express my little moment with knickknacks that I love to gather and do. And I have various different bits that I hide in and out of the cupboards, and depending on my mood, I'll re-merchandise the house one particular way, and then the next month I'll do it another way. So I basically like to think I'm a retail store. But then as we come through from here, we can then walk through into the guest bedroom. And this is another unique space. I opened out the bathroom area itself. So you've got this exposed shower that sits in the actual guest bedroom itself. You've got the same industrial quality coming through with the concrete sinks. We've got recessed storage hidden into the walls behind the mirror cabinets. And then one other area where I allowed a sense of print, although it's softer in terms of its colour palette, was on this beautiful built-in headboard that, again, is a House of Hackney tapestry fabric that I absolutely fell in love with. And it has this fresco scene that makes it unique from left to right. And so we made the headboard to accommodate the width of this particular design. And then in front of that, we've just layered that with some other really beautiful textured neutrals. So it keeps it nice and warm and chic. And then we've got industrial exposed bulb lighting that just comes down and again keeps referencing back to the space that we're in. And I think a lot of what I always try and do when I'm looking at any space and when I design, whether it's professionally or personally, is look at the environment that we're in and really try and design with the environment in mind. What tones are we already working with? What is the architecture that we've already got in this space? How can we make that sing? Because ultimately I find that complementing that instead of trying to juxtapose it too heavily makes it look like so much more of a cohesive space for less effort than if you're trying to constantly battle what you've already got. You're spending probably quite a lot of effort and money fighting the bones of what you've already bought, for example, to then put something else in on top. So this space, absolutely, if I wanted it to be luxurious and refined and all of the other bits and pieces, but in a very, very, very elevated way that would be perfect in Mayfair or Chelsea, just wouldn't sit when you've got this kind of like lovely raw brickwork. So it's the opportunity to really enjoy all of those pieces that might be a little bit rough around the edges. This is kind of like the perfect home for it. It's gorgeous, this sideboard. It actually came from India. It's in mango wood, again hand carved, and all of these little circles in just this geometric design are hand created. And so it's just another piece that references back to the natural materials that we're playing with. It gives me another excuse to get my knickknacks out and to start popping bits and pieces around. But again, it starts to play with things like this raku pot, which blown by hand is just so pretty. And this has also been something which I pulled from my dad's house many years ago and follows me wherever I live. And there's a couple of like little moments that I always make sure, no matter where in the world I am, they're always with me. There's that kind of sense of home that, maybe because I'm a Cancerian, I don't know, it makes me feel really kind of warm and cozy knowing that I've got those bits and pieces with me, and then wherever I am I can make a home from those elements. I'm very fortunate that I live between New York and London. I'd certainly say there's more of an emphasis on the time that I spend here and in Europe. I think what this home particularly represents for me is every part of my travels and my experience is being featured in this space. So as much as I will then spend time in New York, in Lake Como, in the south of France, I love being in all of those regions, but also the UK is where I'm from. So it's my heritage. It truly is a sense of home, and also it's where my dogs are. So the second that I'm here, I'm surrounded by 2 beagles, which I love, and which lounge across the across the furniture. And apparently I decorated for them, because if we actually look at it, everything I've done is tonally appropriate to the dog. Homeworthy, this has been so fun, but now it's time for me to go. See you later.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.